I'm going live. You should be able to hear me on the stream. I'm going to be looking for my camera. Maybe we could find it here. Alright, we're going visually live. I sound good. Fantastic. You guys should be audio.
How about Ryan?
How about me? Audio. Much audio. Checking audio.
Don't we all sound the same since it's
Yep,
Discord?
Ryan's good.
You think so?
Assume I sound okay.
Just keep talking. Just keep saying stuff.
Yeah, keep talking.
All right, yep. Here we are. We're about to stream. This is my voice. I might get excited and talk a little bit louder, but we'll probably be
good.
at this level for most of the time.
Also, you're in the middle of the bunch, so this week is the Davy bunch.
There it
Yeah,
is.
Dave.
Oh, am I like?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Good.
Alright, let's see if
Right where I want to be.
I feel like this is not where my camera normally is. Alright. I think we're all set to go then. So we'll run the intro and... Oh, you know what? I'm going to say... Marcel, say it again. Say it one more time.
Say what one more time?
The soda. What's the soda, Steve?
Jarrito?
Jarrito.
Jarrito.
You see, now you got me messing up Jarrito.
Yeah, that's what I said. Jarrito.
Jarrito. Yeah.
Jarrito.
Not even trying. I know I can't roll my R's
Jarrito.
at all.
Wow. You guys,
Arrito.
Ferrocarril.
Ferrocarril.
Oh, he's look
he's
at that.
got. He's got.
Yeah, he's
Got
got
it. Yeah,
it.
he's got it.
I took
You spent-
Russia and studied in Russia, so I can roll the R's very well at this point.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll hold for the intro. Now kick us off.
Well, you should probably go video live because we're not even.
You should hit refresh.
I
Then, sir.
see it.
Oh, there's a Oh, no, I only see. Oh wait, there is a live button here. How do you?
Got any other
watch live?
corrections you got for me, Marcel?
About 1 million, but
All right. Well,
Oh,
hold them until they're most important, please. All right. Let's watch that intro. This is episode 380 of the Gold Squadron podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Will Whale Whisperer Hegwood, and tonight I'm joined by Marcel. Luke denied me the world, Manzano.
but we're not gonna talk about it because we got a special guest.
We have Ryan Milwaukee Staniszewski.
And that's not Milwaukee King. I'm not crowning anything myself there. I was just doing a lot of walking, and it was great.
We had Asian food called Milwaukee.
That Milwaukee was actually pretty good.
Got me on the pun. Alone.
Yeah, that was
And
really
orange,
good.
And orange chicken. Or sign me up. That's James Stressed Out Ritter.
Between Worlds, a work trip before Worlds, and then me in the middle of a move to a new apartment, I am a little stressed out. We're under control though.
Well, that's good to hear.
That
And-
sounds like a little Jack Porkins talking.
Yeah, I gotta handle it.
And we have a very special guest, Alex Notorious Davy. Welcome in. Thank you so much for having. We're so glad to have you.
Thank
That's your cue.
me for having you.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's good to be here. Up to a smooth start. Wonderful.
It's okay. We don't edit around too. It's all live.
Yeah, we'll
That's
fix
how
it
we
in
like
post.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Except for everybody goes
You're
to it.
good.
Anyways, before we get into who is Alex and some worlds breakdowns, we gotta thank the largest group of our supporters. That's right, the GSP Patreons. They brought you the world's stream. They bring us this podcast, as we say, keep the lights on. The Patreons are who you should be thanking for keeping Gold Squadron running, and we thank them. If you want to be part of that group, it's patreon.com/Gold Squadron.
My lights are off, so that means we're 75% there. So
There you go. We'll have to conserve
Yeah.
a little bit.
yeah.
But speaking of Patreons, again, they brought us this world stream. We're up in Milwaukee. I was there Wednesday through Sunday, so 5 days or so of X-Wing action. We're going to do a whole episode on Worlds. Break down the runs we had, the runs the winner and runner-ups had, everybody and their lists. But for now, we're just going to do the quick version. And Alex, around here, we start at the bottom. We start with the person who got the fewest amount of wins, and that's James. Even though, James, you had 19 games of X-Wing, didn't win a single one.
Yeah, undefeated.
Well, you didn't win any. You didn't lose any either.
I don't know. To me, that sounds like 19 points if we're counting draws. So
Something like
19 tournament points for me. So I think that gets me into cut. Yeah, I was on strict desk duty on the stream for the whole weekend. Thankfully, I had Will for Thursday and Sunday after he scrubbed out and didn't make it into the cut.
Whoa, that's my biz. You keep it on the stream, sir.
But yeah, and then I had a surprise guest with Dion, and even had a couple of people help out on Saturday with the stream. But went really smooth, no major problems, and yeah, great. It was a great weekend, great week, almost a week.
I felt like, yeah, big shout out to who was able to step on. I know it was Andrew Kuba. We had Belinda Mood on. Ryan, you stepped in. Who was the fifth one? Or the fourth?
D. I had
Oh,
D.
Diyun. That's right. Diyun.
Yeah.
It was awesome to see all those guys. And big thank you for those guys stepping in, allowing me to play.
Yeah. I wanted to get Farmer on while D was was on the cast, but Farmer said no. He said any other game but the one that D, because he'll just make fun of me the whole time. And I was like, that's the kind of content that I want to see. So
Perfect. It's like this is potentially the last chance to do it, right? Should have happened.
I know, yeah, potentially for the both of them to be there, yeah. So, but yeah, it was a great week.
I got favorite moment of the weekend.
Man, I don't know about favorite moment, but like most like pucker moment was the game where we had a Falcon,
the Falcon
essentially blow up on the table, and knock like two obstacles, 3 ships, 4 ships if you're including themselves, and then an objective like around. And
the Falcon base fell out of the model. Is that right?
Yeah.
Picked it up from the model, and then the base fell out.
No, he was pushing the ship, the Falcon, back onto the base, and the angle
returning the model.
The angle he was pushing it at instead caused the pegs to like bend and break, and essentially shot one of the pegs like past the shatter point table. Yeah, it was insane. So because of the pressure he was putting on it, it knocked all the other ships around it out of the way.
I'm sure that was a memorable moment to see that happen
for that player. Yeah. One of the judges went, or we call the judge immediately.
Sure.
Judge went over there. He looked at it for like 1 second and walked away and was like, "I'm going to need help with this." And he was like, "That's a disaster." But yeah, that was a very memorable moment, I'll say.
Awesome. I think next up, is that you, Ryan?
Yes. So I played in the main event on Thursday. I took a variation of a Goron list. I was back and forth between that and another Rebel list, and I went 3-2. I wasn't able to play or continue on to Saturday. I played in the team event on Friday. That was a lot of fun. And then I kind of watched a lot of my friends, just kind of spectate on Saturday, checked out some other games. checked out the whole like Bard or Baird Center, and just rooted on my friends. Try to support them as much as I could.
That's awesome. Who else is in your Goron squad?
It was Goron, Feroff, Scimitar 1, Scythe 6, Deathfire, and 1 BSA.
Okay. All right, interesting.
I know Marcel likes going the like 4 4s and 2 2s. I still really liked having Deathfire and Scythe 6.
Yeah, I knew you guys ended up something similar, but I didn't know how different it was. Interesting. Memorable moment?
Probably just a collection of like, being able to stay. So Nathan Ides' dad, Kevin Ides, offered to some of us to stay at his place. He has a great place to host, and he made a massive amount of smoked meat to just have throughout the weekend. And I also like, some people may recall, since multiple worlds, I had been bringing cookies that my wife likes to make, chocolate chip cookies. She's kind of evolved that further to this year, offering more than just regular cookies. She's got chocolate chip, mint, double chocolate, M&M, and we did like a whole ordering thing. She's looking to maybe get this thing into like more of a side business for herself. This is kind of like a stepping stone for it. And it went over great. I delivered them to everyone. I was the middleman helping her out and doing all logistics. And everyone was like super happy with the new edition of the mint double chocolate cookie.
I can say they were very, very good.
Yeah, they were very, very good. I don't know if
Yeah.
you had one, Alex, but you're missing out if you didn't.
I missed out on cookies. I'm just hearing about it now. So
Well,
I'm a
it's
little upset.
Well,
it's a very, very
it's a
exclusive.
tradition.
Why did no one get
Yeah.
to make it?
I tried to blast it out as many discords as possible. I didn't know you were gonna be there. I like James though was like really trying to
It's
dig
fine,
into
it's fine.
like what the potential business name my wife was gonna do, and I kept telling him like I'm gonna get in so much trouble if I say it and someone takes the name, so I can't say it right now.
Good idea. Good idea. Well, I think that's on
Someone
to...
did give me some really delicious dill pickle hot sauce, so that was tasty. I had
do
some on a
recall
quesadilla just yesterday.
Someone did mention they were going to share some hot sauce on an X-Wing Discord
Wait,
somewhere,
I
so
was
that's really
eating some
cool.
of
Yeah.
my burritos earlier. Yeah, it was the same nice gentleman who gave me some hot sauce as well.
Yeah, what is that? Is it Dullahan, the company? I should grab it later
I don't
and
know.
do a plug because it is tasty.
He gave me a fermented, experimental habanero one, so I don't have the label on.
Ooh,
it,
nice.
I don't normally like habanero, but this one
Nothing I
pretty
like
good.
better than getting experimental hot sauces from strangers at X-Wing tournaments. What
Well,
could
I
possibly
mean,
go wrong?
I got his before, so that's a normal thing for me, anyways. Speaking of, I think I'm up next actually, with a 6-4 record, 18 event points, put me at 28th, I think. Went 4-1, day one. Had a Worlds rematch against Fan Long, where we were both very intimidated because we knew we had a good match the last time he played at Worlds. But he had all the tools. If you don't know, his list is very good. It had all the tools to beat mine, so I didn't end up winning that. But starting Saturday at 4-1, it felt really good. Won my first 2 games, including against Psych J7 JJ on our stream. But alas, that's where my run ended. I stayed at that 6-X for the rest of the event. Never got another win, and put myself in whatever I said, 28th or so. But yeah, I mean, 6-1 felt like huge, monumental. I was riding that high, even if I lost the rest of the games. But I did. So we're like, if the tables were set up, top row tables, right? And there's like the empty space kind of by the on the judge's side versus like the table of other X-Wing players. And obviously you want to get to the empty side so you don't have X-Wing people behind you. It's the favorite side there. And I forget what round it was. If it was game 3 or 4 on Saturday. But anyways, parents go up. I see what table I'm on. And I put my phone down. I'm like, dibs on this. But as I do it, Nathan Idy also is putting his X-Wing stuff down at the same exact time, calling dibs on that side. He was like, well, we're going to have to arm wrestle for it. I was like, I'm here for it. Let's go. But I thought it was going to be easy, but he ended up getting me in the arm wrestling competition and in the X-Wing game. So double loss against Nathan Idy.
That's insane. I would have for sure thought you would have gotten that hands down. Like the
I held it for a long time, but
he's like 90 pounds.
Well,
yeah.
Nathan is deceptively strong now.
Yeah, when you're in your 20s, you're a lot stronger. I thought I'd get old man strength by now, but it hasn't come yet. So yeah,
he's got that skinny strength.
I guess I don't know. But yeah, he got me on the table too, and then I played Doug in the 10th round, and basically it was like whoever, because it's basically everybody I lost to was in the cut then, right? Because they all had 7 wins. So just letting people in the cut all Saturday, basically. It's free cut handing out. But yeah.
Yeah, just an SOS farm on your side.
I guess so, jeez. But yeah, I had an amazing time. Big shout out to Tyler Tippett for definitely my most memorable night. He was able to get an event going. Everybody met up to talk X-Wing history and sharing stories and stuff. So that was really generous of Tyler. So big shout out to him. But yeah, I had a great time. I didn't make it, but I had a great time. But the sleeves, just 2 left. I think that's Alex. You're up next. 21 or so? 25, something like that?
23, I think. I was basically 1 win shy of making it to the top 16, which was far beyond what I expected to be able to pull off after being in essentially X-Wing hibernation for 6 years. It had been a long time since I pushed little plastic ships around, of the Star Wars variety anyway. But yeah, a couple months before Worlds, I was planning to go to Adepticon anyway, because there's a lot of stuff at that show that I like to do. I've kind of made it a yearly tradition with a good friend of mine to drive up and do a bunch of different things there. But I was like, it's the last official Worlds. I haven't actually played this game in a long time. I've never played the AMG version of the game. I've never actually put these changes on the table. I've never experienced whatever the meta, is for, the AMG version of the game. And I thought, what the heck? Let's do the swan song. Let's give it a shot. Also, I'd never competed in a major X-Wing event. We as developers, we were not allowed to for obvious reasons. So I was always curious, like, I think I'm halfway decent at this game. I've certainly put enough hours in, but I've never been tested by, the best of the best. And that's what Worlds does. So, I practiced a bit. I think I had maybe 5 or 6 games on TTS, and then I played against Frank Brooks once, and I played against Max Brook once in person. So maybe about 8 games of practice in the couple months leading up to X-Wing. And then I took the opportunity to paint the squadron. So I was mostly just, interested in coming into it and having fun. But the people that I was practicing against were really good. I played against Louis DeLong, Stephen Yu, Dylan Fernandez, who's my coworker over at Renegade on HeroScape, Daniel Chance. So, people who are quite good at the game. And Stephen in particular had a lot of really good tips and strategies. So I kind of worked out a list that could theoretically go toe-to-toe with some of the top lists in the meta. And I had a really good run. I Won my first game. Then I immediately had to play Louis on stream and lost. As if you watched that stream, I got a little overly ambitious, as I tend to do, a little overly aggressive, and just power slammed Fen right into a kill box. Don't do that. I did learn my lesson. Won my third and fourth games, and then I took an ID to get me into day two. So going into day two, I had a pretty uphill struggle because I was 3-1-1 from the first day. So I basically needed to win 4 out of my 5 games. Started out really well. Won my first 2 games on Saturday. Saw a lot. I saw the same or similar first order list a couple times, and my list is really well set up against that list because it can joust with FO ties and SF fighters without taking too much damage. If you get your Fang fighters in the right place, they just clean it up. And Daniel had played first order against me a couple times as well, so I sort of knew what I was doing there. And then I practiced a lot against Rebel lists, so I sort of knew what I was about on that front as well. But you win too much, and eventually you fight someone who really knows what they're doing. So my game 3 of Saturday was against Nathan Idy, and it was awesome actually because I basically watched Nathan get into the game at a very young age, do spectacularly well. And, I used to do either judging or commentary at all the world finals, and he would come to just about every one. So it was very, very cool. It was a cool reunion. It was cool that we actually got to play, on one of the top tables. And it was a really interesting, really close game. It was, recover the supplies. And I elected to ignore the boxes and hope to roll hits to knock them off and just go for the jugular. I killed a lot of his ships, but I did not roll crits. So for 3 rounds, he was scoring like 3 points, 3 points, 2 points. I was playing X-Wing 2.0 in a 2.5 world, and he ended up winning that game. But it did contain probably my favorite, tabletop moment of the whole week, which was he had a dead man switch on his Chewbacca. I shot his Chewbacca with my Fen Rao, killed his Chewbacca, which blew up Dead Man Switch, which killed my Bosk, which blew up Bosk's Dead Man Switch, which, then, and by the time Chewie got his revenge shot, it was just like a smoking crater in the middle of the table. We each lost like 2 ships. It was just a huge explosion of, and what more can you ask as a scum player than to blow up almost the entire table with Dead Man Switch? So it was a great game. Proceeded to have another really great game against my next opponent. Unfortunately, he knocked me out. I think that game was 19-21. But Liam Lee, great opponent, really great sport. And then I had a really strong win to close it out. So 1 win shy of top 16, but I'm already excited about next year. And I was very pleased that I ended up as the strongest scum and villainy player because you got to rep that scum. Didn't get anybody into the top 16, but we got pretty high up the chart, and that's all I can ask, really.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, you got the medal for it, best in faction, right?
That's true. Oh yeah.
You better believe it, baby.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to when I saw your name on the playlist, I was like, "Oh, there's the medal." Yeah.
Because I got best ship too, so. Didn't expect to come on with any hardware, let alone
the painting. Yeah.
Ridiculous belt buckle thing.
Oh,
so
Adepticon doesn't joke around about their prizes.
Oh, they do not. They do not.
When I saw your name on the list of players, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to try to get him on, and he's not gonna be any good, so I gotta make sure I get him on day 1. So because he's definitely not gonna make day 2. But then just straight up showing me up and having a blast. I think during that time when you had that Dead Man Switch, chain effect, you were like right next to the stream table, and all I could hear was Alex Davy like right in my ear yelling, "Dead Man Switch, there's 2 of them!" And like I had to like stop what I was doing and look over because there was just so much noise coming from that area. So I could definitely tell you were having so much fun, and just loving to see that.
Getting out of hand.
Yeah, that's a game I
wish
had been on stream. Yeah, exactly. That's a game I wish had been on stream because it was really down to the wire and had a lot of very cinematic moments. I think the game against Louis was really good too, but it didn't have double Dead Man Switch, and can't quite rise to that.
Yeah, well, Yeah, yeah. I think you threw your Finn like three slam turn right into all of his ships,
It was
and
a
he just
it was a
yeah
huge mistake.
he just called your bluff. He was like, oh,
Well,
wow, yeah,
I
you
talked to him after the game, and he had no idea I was going to do that. He just did his own thing, and I thought I got cute. I thought I could maybe block Han, and if I was able to block Han, that would also bump Wedge, and now you got a stew going. But instead, I just plopped him right in between the two, but not in my front arc, so I couldn't use Beskar. And obviously Han out the side isn't going to give you Concordia. So how to lose your Fen in one easy step? If you want to watch that, if you need that pro tip, you can watch that opening. Did claw my way back because I took Han down the next round, but it wasn't quite enough. Also, I forgot a crucial trigger, which I don't think it cost me the game because I don't think I was going to win anyway, but it cost me the chance of winning the game, not recharging overtune modulators, getting strain on Manaru, not getting the pile of calculates for the next
yeah.
round. So there were a few. It was good to get that out of the way early because it reminded me to check my triggers, pay a lot of attention to the strategy, and I also stopped slamming like an idiot. So
Well, it
it's
sounds like it
really
worked out
good
for
to
at
do.
least the first two rounds of the event. So, but yeah, I
Well,
was really
yeah,
glad I was able to get you on stream.
it was fun. Well, and all three of my losses were people who made the cut. So, and none of them was a total blowout. So I felt just good. I felt good. And most of all, I think, regardless of the actual results and I'm a competitive person. It's fun to win. But the most fun that I had was just honestly reconnecting with such a great community. Like it just had been a while since I checked in with X-Wing World, and to see it still going strong, to see people still coming out and having fun, and to have that sort of same vibe and attitude that I remember from judging and commenting and just being around X-Wing players. It was very cool to participate for a change, and I intend to keep doing so for as long as the game continues. So something to look forward to next year already.
Yeah, I would say the overall, I think everyone's kind of had that same attitude of like, let's just give it one more go. We're here to have fun. There wasn't fights, arguments. None. I didn't see any of that. Everyone was having a blast, laughing hysterically. So that's.
Yeah,
I'm glad
and
it was a good
every single one of my
representation.
opponents was gracious. Like every single one of my opponents was gracious, win or lose. There were a couple of games when opponents' dice just fell apart, and I ended up winning by like a ridiculous margin. There's really nothing you could do at that point, but they still had it was still a fun game. So yeah, not one single out of all 10 games, not one single bad experience, not one single bit of salt. So really great, just really really positive vibes, and kind of exactly what you want to see out of a top level competition, friendly competition,
Right.
and people who are there to have fun. They're there to do the best that they can, but they're mostly just there to participate in something that we all enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I see like Grimwolf here in the chat was talking about how he had you sign one of his ships. Did you have any other fanboy moments of people coming up and thanking you or thanking you or asking you to sign stuff?
Yeah, everyone was really sweet. I mean, I like to say that I'm an F-list celebrity because I'm, quasi famous within an extremely specific context.
Yeah, we call it
Uh,
X-Wing famous.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, but no, it was great. I signed up. I didn't go under a fake name or anything, but like, nor did I publicize my appearance. I just kind of wanted to see, if anybody would notice or anyone would say anything. And yeah, a lot of people were thrilled. It was. I had a lot of really great conversations with people who told me how important the game has been to them, in their lives for various reasons. It's been a huge part of my life, obviously, working on it for 9 years, whatever it was. And yeah, so it was great. It's a little bittersweet, obviously, because official support for the game is ending. But the nice thing is that I think that this is the kind of community that can pick up the torch and run with it, much like with that game, which is still going strong, which I still play. So if X-Wing can make that pivot the way that Netrunner did, I think we'll be in great shape, and there's plenty of new content to look forward to in the years to come. So yeah, it just good to remember. This was a thing I spent a good chunk of my late 20s, early 30s working on, and did matter. It did make a difference for people, and just cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's still having a great time with it. The fundamentals were good. It turns out.
It's just a genuinely great game. I felt that way since the first minute that I played it. So I started at Fantasy Flight in 2011. I literally started at Gen Con that year, and that was the year that X-Wing was released at Gen Con. So I ended up doing some demos for it, and didn't actually work on it until like a year and a half or 2 years later, starting in like wave 4 / the Corellian Corvette from first edition. But I played it at the office. I loved it. I sort of maneuvered myself onto the dev team eventually, just through, playing it a lot and participating in play tests, and just, indicating that, should anyone want someone to jump on the game, I would be more than happy to do so. So, yeah, I've always liked it. I think there's just an inherently compelling aspect of the force movement system that is unlike any other minis game, and keeps every round interesting in a way that a lot of games don't necessarily do.
I know Alex, we want to dive into it. We want to hear more, but Marcel has been
But we
so
gotta hear Marcel.
patient. He's been
He
so
had a great
patient
run.
over there.
It's so good over there.
He's been doing
No, I've
so
actually
good.
been having a blast listening to Alex. And even before we jump into my run, Alex, you said something that like hit home a little bit. Like you said, that like it's been such a big part of your life, but it's also been such a big part of other people's lives. And I started playing in 20 like my brother on the Christmas of 2015, like during the family Christmas, brought a starter set. Just the Vader. No, it wasn't Vader. What was it? Was it Vader?
No,
Yeah, it
it's
was
ties
Vader,
and
Luke.
X-wing.
Nice. Tie and
Yeah,
X-Wing.
two
Yeah, it was
ties and
something.
next one.
But
Yeah.
he had a Vader. He did have a Vader. And we played it for the first time in 2015, and then he gifted me what we played with as like we played it during Christmas, and then he was like, "Oh, this is your Christmas gift."
Oh, that's nice.
It was, and it was also kind of um a social. It became like a social latch or a social lifeline, let's say, because at that time I was going through a divorce of 16 years. It was like I was married for 16 years, and I was going through like the beginning portions of a divorce. That and that's what I clung to, and that's what I like that same year. Like 6 months later, I won Gen Con, and then we went to Worlds. I think I got like top 4 or top 8 at Worlds that year, but I got like really invested because that was my escape from like life. So I'm sure that I'm not the only one that has like a similar story where the community aspect of it, the game itself, because I'm a big chess player, uh, like this. I mean, this is what I have in my like this, like. But the chess aspect of it, and like the community aspect of it, just kind of like felt it came in really cool. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone else over at FFG that put this together, because I had played other type of games like this before, but nothing had ever stuck. Like it was like, oh yeah, this is fun, especially the card ones. Like I enjoy the card ones, like the magics and stuff, for like a week, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. But this felt a little bit more like my original passion, like chess, and it's like, oh, I'm actually pushing pieces around. But this time it's
It's
Darth Vader and Luke
it's
Skywalker.
very positional.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's dice involved, but a good position can win or lose you the game. And in that sense, it is very, very chess-like, especially with some of the missions. Um, but yeah, no, I think everyone struggles in life, and I think one of the things that is sort of alienating about the modern world is that we're often very disconnected from any sort of community. We're just sort of in our own little bubbles, whether that's a family or a job or whatever. And games really do bring people together. I think the advantage that tabletop games have over video games is that you do see people in person, and you get those hangout moments. You get those, off the table or outside the tournament, situations, which also I always loved about Worlds, even though I wasn't, ever participating until this year. We would always, go out for dinner or like talk to people, and yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference. We need community, I think, more than ever, and I think the X-Wing community has been historically a really great one, and I think that's honestly maybe what I'm happiest about in terms of the game's legacy. I think it's brought a lot of people together, and I think it will, continue to do so.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for that. Oh, about my run, yeah. So I started out. Sorry, I got sidetracked a little bit. So I started. I won the first game, but the second game I lost to a scum list. I lost to a scum player the second round. Ray survived on one hull, and it was like it was. I'm cursed by the one hull, I guess, because Ray survived on one hull and lived on one hull for like 5 rounds until I finally got the one damage in on Ray. But then I won the next two, and then I intentional drawed to get in at 3-1-1, just like you. And it was a guy from New Zealand, and the guy, even before I approached the table, he was already shaking his head and going like this. I was like okay, whatever. I'm planning on. I'm just playing. I'm having the teams again on Friday, and then just hanging out Saturday and playing some more X-Wing. I didn't even have a hotel for Saturday night because I was expecting to just play the team event. Hopefully make Saturday, and if I didn't make Saturday, just drive home early on Saturday. But Friday I ended up in the team event just winning all my games in the team event, and then Saturday I ended up winning all my games except one, which was a natural draw. It was a 19-19 draw,
Wow.
which was essentially a two-sided loss because at 3-1-1, a draw was equivalent to a loss, so we both lost. So it was a two-sided loss to an amazing guy who ended up in 17th, and he almost got to play because the number 16th, no, it was like the number 9 player, one of them was like 10 minutes late, and they were already doing a countdown for him being eliminated. So he almost made it in as well, but he ended up in 17th overall. But yeah, I went undefeated for the next couple days after losing that second game. And I got to play some amazing people. Some Daniel Sheev was a really close game. Played Stephen Kim, who unfortunately was not a close game, but I think he was just put in a. He was one of those games that the dice just tell one player that they're not allowed to play X-Wing that day. So it was one of those situations for Stephen. Feel kind of bad for him. But yeah, this was actually the most expensive medal because to stay from Saturday to Sunday to get this, it was like $300 because I had to pay like 200 and something for this, and then I went to celebrate my miraculous comeback and had like a $100+ dinner, and so I'm like, yeah, this is a very expensive medal, so I'm gonna hold on to this one. And then lost.
Kind of like Paul Heaver when he had to miss his flight.
Oh yeah, during one of the world's finals. Yeah, I remember that.
At least he won that one.
Yeah, he did.
If he lost.
Yeah, I mean, if you stay and lose, then you go home poor and salty. And I did get to play Paul. I got to play Paul in the top 8, so that was another good thing. I think I haven't lost to Paul yet, so that's I consider him to be one of the like best 3 players ever. So the fact that I've beaten Paul every time I played him kind of feels a little good. Then his buddy Duncan comes and smacks me around, so or I think me and Idy are like even, but yeah, Duncan smacks me around most of the times. But yeah, lost against Fawn in the final, and it was the same situation where Luke survived on one hull in the first engagement, and then after that, Luke survived for like 5 rounds. No, like 4 or 5 rounds, and the match was over. But overall, like I had a blast. I don't know if if you guys do like that wide angle camera thing on stream now, right?
Uh, occasionally, yeah. Oh, did we ever like
Yeah.
show the tables? I don't think we swiveled it around.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, because what I was saying is like this worlds in particular, and all the I've made like the top cut in I think all of them but one or not. Yeah, I think I missed it like once or twice. But it's always like a pressure. Like when you're winning, there's like a little bit of anxiety and like nervous energy and things like that. This was the first one that I think I felt like zero pressure to perform. And even during the finals, even while things were even or when I was losing to Fawn, I felt super comfortable, and I was genuinely happy to be there. And when I lost, like there was like no hard feelings, there was no anxiety, there was no stress, there was like I was just happy that I made it as far as I made it. And that's why I was asking if you were doing the wide angle because I was uh while the judges most of the match was like judges repositioning stuff. I was just on the side eating pizza and just hanging out, eating pizza, talking to people on the side while the game was going on.
Oh, well, the caddy moved your
yeah,
ships for you.
we call those X-wing
Yeah.
caddies, Alex.
Yeah, yeah.
Just get the
Extra daddy.
judges to do it. They'll do it
Yeah.
right.
Oh man, I was so
So,
to do any sort of X-wing microsurgery this weekend because that's the just like trying not to blow up the game state as you
Yeah.
delicately move and measure tiny spaceships.
Yeah.
Not having to do that for once at Worlds was delightful.
Yeah, I don't envy that for nobody, especially
And big
because
props to those who did.
yeah,
No.
like I don't know if you know, but like a lot of people know that I don't have use of my right hand. So playing X-wing with basically one hand creates like it makes me automatically a messy player because I'm trying to use this hand to like help reposition the other one. So yeah, I, I that is the worst part of X-wing for me is the trying
Mhm.
to figure out bumps and stuff like that because and then especially at an event like Worlds because at most events or even if you're like at the tables that are not playing for anything like if you're in like the tables that are not vying for the cut. You grab the ship and you're like, oh, does this look all right? And you both shake, yeah, it looks fine. Okay, just drop it, plop it, whatever. But once the stakes are a little bit higher, then you have to get into like the position and it just gets a little rough. But anyway, yeah, I had a great time, and I think if we had to say one moment that was like the moment for me that just kind of stands out was that one draw for me because it just felt so strange, like both of us having that double loss. Like we both walked away sad. Like, oh man, this is bad. Anyway,
yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Before we head into, and also congrats, Marcel, on a great run. The best of us.
Oh wait.
Word.
I have two of these, but I
Oh.
actually mailed one out because I also won the
The paint job.
the paint, but not the painted ship, the painted squadron.
Okay.
Like the full painted
yeah.
squadron,
Sure.
But I sent it back to Ryan Coyle from UK, who is the actual person who painted it because I suck at painting. If I painted it, it would just be like a spray paint, like one color spray paint over it. So Ryan Coyle ended up getting it, but that was cool. As well.
Yeah, I did not know that they were going to be handing out
Painting awards.
painting awards.
They do it every year.
We don't. Well, like not normally at the Adepticon medals. I know we had like the painted ships last year, but
No, they've been doing it every year.
well, I don't paint my ships.
Yeah,
very
I
often,
had
so-
no idea they would do that either. It makes sense for Adepticon because it is such a hobby focused convention. But X-wing has pre-painted ships, so you just don't usually need to paint them. Although I did see some really nice paint jobs out there over the weekend, so it was cool that some people do enjoy the hobby angle of it as well. But as long as you reprime them with something decent, they paint up really nicely.
Yeah, saw some LED ones out on the table, a Ghost and a Falcon. I remember off the top of my head that were just all lit
Yes,
up.
Stephen Kim has been working on some really cool, easy, like budget LED strips for Falcons. So hopefully we'll see those get pretty accessible in the near future. They're very cool.
I know, right? Yeah, it's just something that reminds us why we're playing this game. Those cool models, right? Marcel, anything else? You keep saying final. It was your final game, and it was the
Yeah.
top 4 match as a note for the.
No, I said my final game. Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. If
Yeah.
anybody confused out there,
No, I was not the finalist. I was not.
Yeah, I was like, I know I was tired at the end of the day. I don't remember if it was seeing myself get to the top table, but okay.
I said my final game, my
yes,
last game.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
Top
last
four, still
official,
very-
my last
yeah.
official X-wing game. There will be more games,
Sure.
and there will be more Adepticon games, I'm sure. But it was my last officially sanctioned game of X-wing.
Yeah. Closing thoughts on Worlds. Like I said, we are gonna do a whole next episode on it. We're going depth. We answer all your questions about it.
My only final
but-
thought on it is
Yes.
that it is the final official, but not the final.
That's
And I
a-
think
Mhm.
a
I'm
good
excited
point,
about that.
to make. There's a lot of questions about it, but Hank from Adepticon, very familiar with each of the miniatures games. We've worked with them personally. If there's a way, we're gonna figure it out, and we'll keep X-Wing at Adepticon, and it'll continue to be the World Championship. Obviously, a lot of hoops to jump through with that, but if Hank is in on it, it can happen at Adepticon. So, and it sounds like with one of the largest events over there in the AMG and Asmodee Arena, hopefully popularity will
I'll say too that
stay.
the new location, the Barrett Center, and in Milwaukee, I'm hard pressed to find a reason not to like it much more than the previous
Yeah.
one.
I didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of experience in Milwaukee, and I'm blown away. Walkable
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
The Bird Center was great.
Yep.
You know,
I mean, you got multiple hotels around you instead of just
Yeah.
one. You can walk to a lot of places to eat. The best place to me was that third market hall. You had all those vendor, stands for food everywhere. Like you could take a large group of people there. You don't have to like agree on one type of food, and everyone can just go get whatever they want and then meet up at a place to eat. Right? That's just sit out. They had that one nice day on Friday where a lot of us sat outside and enjoyed our food. That was a good time. And then I think I know there's people who couldn't make it to this Adepticon because Chicago is a much easier city to fly into than Milwaukee, at least on the cost end of things. It seems like a decent amount of people still flew into Chicago and then just, whether through renting a car or public transportation, found their way up to Milwaukee. Yeah, Marcel's got the picture when we were outside. There you go. Sharing his phone for the listening audience. But I think we could definitely do a good job, or maybe even encourage Hank and Adepticon to provide a page, or us as an X-Wing community to maybe share ways to get from Chicago to Milwaukee, because a lot of people thought it was going to be a little, still costly or a little bit too complicated, and most people who utilize that method, or even just hitched a ride with someone who was driving, it was pretty easy. So I think we could debunk a lot of those potential myths for travel and get more of the people who were able to attend Chicago consistently each year to also be able to attend Milwaukee.
Yeah, it definitely has the potential to be a more expensive trip, but we were finding ways around it.
It's not necessarily like the train ride is super cheap. It's quick
That's
and
true.
cheap.
You
If
can't
you
just
take the train,
Take the train from Chicago.
it's an hour
But-
and it's
Or
less
just
than
make sure
20
you
bucks,
get a
yeah.
word out to any of your friends that are going there that aren't also from your own community, that might be driving there. It's like for me, I'm in the Michigan, Detroit metro area. It took me 6 hour drive. I just drove with people, but I had a car, so like I could help get people from places if they needed to. So like if you find that type of person who also lives close enough to drive to Milwaukee, you might be able to just, instead of getting a Uber or a Lyft from anywhere or public transportation, you could also ask around who else can get you places.
Okay, so I know we've got a million questions for Alex, but I got one question for you, Ryan, first. How many cookies disappeared on the 6 hour ride from Detroit to Milwaukee?
Any additional cookies that were consumed in the car were not by me, and if it was Mark, Robert, and Cody were the guys riding with me, if they had any, it was like maybe one or anything, but those were all extra yields from her orders. Like she had, there was one batch of cookies for like, man, I just need one more cookie to complete this order. Well, here's another whole batch. Like, so here's like 15 extra cookies or whatever. So I had extra bags that I was able to like. I was mainly intended for Kevin Idie's house, so as a thank you, and for anyone else there as well. But any of the guys who rode or anyone who wanted extras, like I kind of had them along with me sometimes. But every cookie was consumed that I brought along by the people who ordered them and by anyone who were able to get their hands on them.
All right. Speaking of, we got a million questions for Alex, but we got one last thing, one last headline we gotta mention, and it's, of course, the XWA, the X-Wing Alliance, the community effort, putting forth content, resources for the continuation of X-Wing. They just dropped its Escape Over Dakar EOD cards. There just got posted on their website, xwing.life. You can follow the resources page to the XWA content. You can check out all the new cards. They got points up as well, articles.
You did mention
Hot new
the
boss
Armed and
just
Dangerous.
I know.
Yeah, that's the
Correct.
scum.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you
It
just
was
say the name
originally Armed and Dangerous, because
Armed and
we
Dangerous.
originally had it set for Most Wanted as a callback to the original Scum expansion.
Sure.
But we also didn't want to confuse anyone, nor have any weird legal issues being the name of an actual
Avoid.
product that's being sold. So we're like, while we like the callback and nostalgia to it, we probably should do a different name for the pack of Scum pilots. So we went with Armed and Dangerous.
I think Alice can can agree with that for trying to steer away from right.
Oh, yeah,
or-
you gotta tread carefully. Yeah, it's a fine, needle to thread. But I think so far XWA has been pretty smart about trying to be respectful of all of the various copyright issues and everything. So hopefully it will continue to go smoothly. But yeah, I would encourage always err on the side of, not getting that letter from Disney that you don't want to get, or from whomever.
Well, that's the best part.
That's
C&D
great.
in the mouse.
Is that all of this totally free? You can just go right to xwing.life, download a PDF. It'll show you the cards. They got new points out as well. I can't believe both those SFs are 4 points. All the SLs are 4 points, Ryan. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. But
people have feelings
back to
everywhere.
Epo.
People have feelings everywhere, all over the place on these. So it'll be fun to see everyone's reaction, what they feel is like awesome, or like, oh, this doesn't seem good, or oh, this seems broken, and like you get the complete opposite reaction somewhere else. So it's interesting to be on the creation side of it, and then seeing the reactions and seeing just so wide, diverse of opinions. Very interesting.
right. Yeah. So
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, as it stands right now, these are beta points. So that is still obviously under review for the XWA. They have places where you can send them information, fly the new SLs, tell them your squad, tell them your experience, so they can get that feedback. Hopefully, looking this year to extend out of beta for in the future, but right now everyone's excited to see that first content come out officially, play tested and formatted for those resources. So,
Will,
I
I
think
don't know
they're
if you
officially
saw,
out of
but
beta. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you
is
saw,
this
but
out
on
of beta?
Yasby, it's no longer XWA beta. It's just called XWA now in Yasby.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Um,
Okay,
it's
Hit that 1.0.
I didn't know if they were waiting.
uh,
I'm in on a lot of it, but I don't have the language down.
yeah. There was no official announcement, just kind of just softly
It
like
just
Decepticons
is now.
over. The people who are running the
Interesting.
GTs don't they don't think it's a big deal that we changed the name on Yasby. So
Right.
because I think there's 2 GTs still left.
Maine, Virginia, at least in the United States. There's
Yeah.
I think maybe 1 or 2 more in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, and a couple over in Europe as well. So, still not officially at the end of the Grand Tournament season. So, I'm assuming that's when the floodgates will open. As for reference, Alex, I don't know how much you've been keeping up, but it's very similar in point structure and scenarios and stuff to current X-Wing, to kind of not start the confusion right away or try to pull people away from any official events. So it's very similar right now for the time being.
Yeah. I saw the new Scum stuff, and that boss is exciting. I guess I have to paint yet another boss.
Yes.
to join Rust's squadron. I mean, I'm like 666, just jam it in people's face, and with reinforce and all the little tricks that the standard loadout has, pretty exciting. So I'm already cooking on some new Scum nonsense. We'll see what I bring next year.
That's awesome to hear.
It was definitely awesome to get characters that we knew, like Cad Bane always had his buddy Toto 360. I didn't even know his name. He had 360 in his name until I had to look it up and find it out. But it's like always just call him Toto. But have him be a thing now as part of Cad Bane, synonymous with him was a nice addition. Adding characters like that cool long or big wide brim shield hat guy Embo, that people don't know his name right away, but they know he did the cool stuff in Clone Wars, right? Yeah. It was fun getting those guys all in there. Some new ones that got to represent some cool abilities.
Yeah, so again, fantastic to see that come out. Again, xwing.life is the website. Go there, try out the SLs, check out the new points, give them feedback. So hopefully we can get more down the road from them.
Yeah, I say enough stuff. XWA. I want to make
get out of here.
Yeah, I want to make Alex regret ever coming here. Come on, let's give him tough questions.
Oh yeah,
let's
give him the tough questions.
So many exciting things to talk about. But yes, Alex, thank you so much for coming on. First, we gotta know you mentioned some of it already, but why does X-Wing know you? Why are you X-Wing famous?
Well, I made people play a bunch of free Jumpmaster lists for a while. Maybe that notoriety has lingered. No, I was a developer on X-Wing 1.0 from Wave 4, which was the Phantom, and I don't remember what else was in that wave. That was the kind of the highlight of that wave for me. But pretty early on, not right at the beginning, but maybe about a year in, I started developing on it. And then I continued to develop on the game all the way through till the end of the Fantasy Flight era. So I wasn't as actively involved in the last 2 or 3 years of the game. But I would contribute. And the only reason I wasn't as actively involved is because I was heading up the Star Wars Legion development at the time, so I was busy with that. But the nice thing about our structure at Fantasy Flight is we had a whole studio and we would be able to swap in and out of projects so we could keep it fresh. So I was lucky enough to work on Armada a little bit and work on X-Wing a lot, and then work on Legion a ton as well, obviously. So that's my background. Played a lot of Office X-Wing, a little bit of X-Wing outside the office, like at lunch and stuff. Couple of random small scale tournaments. I took a 6 A-Wing list to a 1.0 tournament way back in the day, Store Champs, and did pretty well and won that one. But mostly my work has just been as a developer rather than as a player.
That's fantastic. So, as you said, rotating around Armada and Legion. So no, did not see the transition into X-Wing. Or X-Wing Second Edition is what I meant to say.
No, I was pretty involved because that was something that was important to me, and so Frank basically led that team. Frank Brooks, who came onto the X-Wing team basically at the same time as me, and was kind of my partner in crime throughout all of First Edition. It was pretty much just Frank and me. Towards the end of First Edition, I think we got Max Brook involved, and then I can't remember when Brooks Flugar Levitt came on board, but mostly it was Frank and I after the James J. Corey era sort of passed the torch to us. But Frank and I had kept like a running design document, basically just a huge slush document of everything that we would change if we were able to do a 2.0. And eventually we just sort of exhausted the possibilities of 1.0. We had kind of burned through all the design space. The foundations weren't really broad enough to do too much more with the game. We just kind of run out of tweaks to the formula, and ships started getting a little samey. Could have kept going, but the time had kind of come for a refresh. So we dug out that document, which was like 20 plus pages long at that point, and sort of really, drilling down on like, well, what needs to change so that this game can go on, and so there's more design space, and so that we can kind of keep this thing going and give it sort of a rebirth. So I was heavily involved with that, although Frank was the lead on that project, and I think Max was more involved than I was on the 2.0 project. But that was the product of many years of thinking and thinking what we would do slightly differently. So really proud of how linked actions are just baked into the system now. Really proud about the way that we sort of revised all the dials, because dial creep had kind of become a thing. The early dials weren't keeping pace with the later dials. A lot of the essentially fancier stuff like Segnor's loops and Talon rolls just weren't on the earlier dials, just based on when they were released. So it was kind of an opportunity to level the playing field, bake in a few more design levers for us to use going forwards, and redo the game in a way that was consistent with 1.0, but with a lot more design space right at the ground floor.
I mean, yeah, it's been a base system. It's we've seen new tokens, new ways to tweak pilot abilities, new ways to have dials, but that base system of arcs, and you called it forced movement, was just kept essential and like so important throughout the game.
Yeah. Something that really stuck with me that you guys talked about early was like levers. Like we just need to add more levers into the game to that way we can pull these or push these up or down. And I think that was a really great, and that's what always stuck with me. Like that you guys built in all these levers to have that wide foundation that you guys can always come back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no, and I really
even something as simple as a red action.
Yeah.
There was no red actions there was a red action from the beginning, right?
Your red action was push the limit.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, it's crazy. If you actually go back and look at a 1.0 card, it is crazy how minimalist it seems
yeah,
compared to a 2.0 card.
yeah. For some
And
reason, I
I
thought
mean
like red
that's
actions
part
were
of.
there from the beginning. Like my
No.
It seems like
brain
they
just
should be.
completely
Like,
deleted a lot of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I remember the last 1.0 Nova Open. We had this like open panel in this separate room, and you I recall, I believe you were there, Alex. We were fielding questions,
Mhm.
and yeah, like it just I think one of my questions was related to like how you guys got to the linked action system and the whole colored of actions, because it just seems such a good change from 1 to 2 that it's just like, oh yeah, like you'd have different colored maneuvers on your dial. Why can't you have different colored actions too? So cool.
yeah, and it's one of those things where like it's so much easier to come into a game, especially a really good game, and build on what has come before. So we're already for 2.0, we're already standing on top of a great set of mechanics. And we had the benefit of 8 years of development and thinking and seeing, well, okay, push the limit is stapled to every ship that can take it essentially. Why is this not just part of the game? Why is this not just built into the chassis? And I think that gives you a lot of freedom, and it gives you a lot more ways to make different ships feel unique. And missions is another thing that we didn't do, but that AMG added on to the equation, and it's another interesting wrinkle and an interesting problem to solve. Like it was very interesting to me as a designer to come in and see some mechanics that I had nothing to do with, and kind of be able to try to evaluate those as a player. I was surprised by what I did like and what I didn't like. I thought that I would really dislike Road because it was so different from what had come
Yeah.
before. But after playing with it a while, I think it's not perfect. It creates a little bit of weirdness in terms of bumping, and obviously there was sort of a chain reaction of rules that had to come into effect to compensate for that. But I think it's superior to the old, oh, I just won the bid. I have initiative for the entire game with my aces, and you're going to be lucky if you get a shot off. Like that, there were some inherent problems with that. Um, Missions are something that I came into the experience of learning AMG Wing feeling positive about, because we actually always wanted to do missions. We just were we were basically just carrying on with the deathmatch because that's the way it had always been. No one was really complaining about it, and the Fantasy Flight Games OP program didn't want to rock the boat too much. Like they were like, people like this. There's no real reason to change. X-Wing is hugely popular. These tournaments are hugely popular. We're like, all right, that's not a bad argument. Changes. I mean, I think you see what happened with AMG's radical changes, and even if some of them were potentially changes for the better, and we saw that with 1.0 to 2.0, change is a risk. So I think FFG was just like, why risk this, right?
Yeah.
But I like the concept of missions. Having played the missions, I think 2 of them are really fun and interesting. One of them is basically just deathmatch with some needless complication, in my opinion. Like it barely matters that there's a thing in the middle. And then I think the flipping the satellites one, I can't remember. The satellites one's confused me. It's either assault on the satellite array or the other one.
Yeah.
The button pushing one, I think that one has some problems because it's a bit of a win more. If you get the buttons early and then you put a lot of pressure on your opponent, certain lists thrive in that environment more than others. But
That's the most snowbally
believe-
one, yeah, for sure.
If you can believe, Alex,
Yeah.
there were 5 of them at one point, and you had to roll dice to
Oh,
see
I
if
missed
you
that.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah,
I think
it was not
yeah,
a
that was
guaranteed
terrible.
action. You had
Actually,
to roll dice to see if you got it.
I still have nightmares of the
Yeah,
first
I do
of the
too.
no, not of that one. I still have nightmares of the first salvage.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
salvage, you were allowed to barrel roll boost while carrying a carry.
Oh, so you could
And
just run
yeah.
away.
Yeah.
So I made
Yeah.
it was the very first 2.5 tournament ever was the Adepticon, and me and Nathan Idy made the final. But Nathan Idy was smart enough to bring
He was smart.
Jedi. Yeah, he was smart enough to bring Jedi, and I brought Rebels. So in the final, he completely demolished me because he picked up the boxes, and he's like barrel roll boost, and reposition like free, and I never touched them. So
I've watched
yeah,
Nathan play for years. I think
yeah.
it's safe to say that nobody on the planet runs away in X-wing better than he does. No shade, no shade.
No, no,
But
no, no. But it was
he used to
like,
run regen pouring horn. He
yeah,
would slip right out and he would charge back up, and then he would come in and delete the
yeah, yeah,
last few ships. So he
yeah.
gets it. I mean, he beat me in our match because he instantly grabbed all the basically was it supplies? Yeah, it was supplies. He just grabbed all the boxes.
Yeah.
And I knew he was going to do that, and I thought I had a counter plan, but he racked up so many points doing that. It didn't matter that I killed most of his squadron because he was, able to just basically scoot over the finish line with his last couple ships at the end there. So,
Mm.
dude knows how to play the objectives.
Yeah,
That's how
yeah.
you do it.
He's a savant. If he put more time to it, he would be
Mhm.
world champion a few times. I do have a couple. So one of them is a statement first, which is
Sure.
I played the final tournament of 2.0 before going into 2.5. And I thought that was just like I think when you take all of the changes into, especially after there was like some tweaks and balances done, because early on, when especially with the Force, like when you guys first introduced the Force, that was like a permanent focus token like that needed some
It
balancing
was a
early on. Yeah,
little rough. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I think by that point, like the balance was really good because I was flying a 6 ship list and I was doing well. And then the eventual winner was, I think, Daniel Lim with an 8 ship list, and he beat a 2 ship list in the final. So I think there was really good balance there. But I also like the introduction of, like, to your point earlier, of like the missions. And you said that you wanna you guys were thinking of introducing missions before, but you don't want to rock the boat. Um,
Yeah,
a lot,
and we
yeah,
weren't sure they would be popular. I think 2.0 was a lot of changes. In my opinion, a lot of them good, but I think some of them not so great. I mean, I know we probably gained some players, but we also lost some players who missed the simplicity of 1.0. Like, there's pros and cons to everything, right?
yeah,
And the more granular you make something, the more complicated you make something, you're gonna alienate the super casual players, and you're gonna make the really competitive players happy. So it's a tough balance. I think 2.0 was largely struck that balance well, but some people might not agree. Some people might think having
yeah,
strain and stress and deplete and certain pilot abilities that are almost like flow charts in terms of which conditions you need to meet in order to succeed at them. Like, it's possible that 2.0 would have benefited from a bit of a sterner hand in terms of preserving that simplicity. So it's always tough as a designer because you don't want to box yourself into a corner and run out of design space, but you
hmm,
also don't want to present people with a wall of rules that are very difficult to process. So, I mean,
yeah,
one of my favorite minis games of all time is Infinity by Corvus Belli, and it's great. It's a phenomenal game. It is the hardest learning curve of any game I've ever played in my life, and almost every single friend of mine who tried it bounced off of it for that reason.
hmm,
So, but it's utterly beloved by people who like that sort of depth and complexity. So it's tough. You have to kind of thread that needle, and I think it was very interesting to see how AMG tried to do that, and to sort of see the ways that I think they succeeded, and I think some of the ways that I don't think that they did succeed, which counterintuitively were things that they tried to do to make the game ostensibly simpler.
hmm,
And I think that the main thing, I'm just sort of soapboxing here, but I'll roll with it. The main thing I think is the point system, right? Like, on paper, it's only 20 points. It's easier to build a list theoretically because you just pick ships, but it's actually in practice a lot more complicated because you end up in the actual play experience has a lot more upgrade cards involved. So there's more text to read, there's more stuff to think about. And it's sort of harder to balance in some ways because the number of upgrade points that each ship gets is sort of arbitrary. So in like I like a lot of I will preface this by saying I like a lot of what AMG did. I think that they had a really good faith effort towards putting their mark on the game and fixing the things that they saw as problems. I think the point system was I understand why they did it, why they tried that, but I think you kind of end up with the worst of both worlds. You have a system that's not granular enough to do a lot of list building creativity, but it's also not simpler. So you haven't added some, you haven't cut down on complexity, but you have cut down on granularity. Somehow they managed to do something that was both more complicated and like less conducive towards creativity. So I think if there's one thing that I would hope to see is a return to that more flexible points building system. It's harder to balance, potentially. It's more work, but it yields a more, in my opinion, obviously I'm very biased to keep that in mind.
What'd they do to my baby?
In my opinion, I think it's more interesting. Yeah, I mean there was like I had to climb Salt Mountain a little bit, right? Like there was definitely like oh god, it's tough to lose something that you care about and not have it be in your control anymore. But coming back to it, I think has been really great because game's still great. And AMG did some good things. They did some innovative things. They made some cool content, and I hope that they'll keep doing that with Legion. And I know that the XWA will keep doing that with X-Wing. So at some point, if you're going to be a developer, unless you just stay on the same game forever, which I wouldn't enjoy either, you have to let it go, right? Someone else is going to take that torch and run with it. And you may not always like which direction they go, but it's also really kind of rewarding to see what people do with what I inherited X-Wing, right? I was not the first developer on X-Wing, so I don't know how Jay feels about about where it's gone. I don't know how James feels about it, but as long as people are innovating, I think eventually we'll see what X-Wing 3.0 or whatever XWA wants to call it looks like. And I'm excited to see that. I think it's already really promising.
So I do have, because you touched on a lot of points, and I think one of them was the business side. Like you were talking about a little bit about the business side, and that's something that I'm more familiar with, right? And like the most basic business book that you can probably get, it's almost like a children's animated book, right? Like not animated, but just like a picture book. It's called Who Moved My Cheese. I don't know if any of you all have read it before, like Who Moved My Cheese.
I've heard of it. I've not read it, but I've heard of it.
But it basically is just like a picture book of like a Dr. Seuss book of the introducing change, like, and the resistance to change, like how hard change is. And I think that's one of the things that AMG unfortunately was cursed with, is Who Moved My Cheese from the existing player base, because through Asmodee it went from FFG to a completely new developing system, and that was directly after a switch from 1.0 to 2.0, and then they needed to input their own change on top of that, going into like the 2.5 and then into the scenarios. So I think it was again, from the Who Moved My Cheese perspective, it was like it was really I think they were just put in a very difficult situation because people had an expectation and they kept moving. It was like, wait, this is not the game that I signed up for, and wait, this is not the game that I signed up for. So it was. So I think from a business perspective, way above, you guys' control, you guys being like the developers' control, like from the Asmodee level, I think they kind of put some things in motion that put you and them in a tough spot. But then you also talk. God.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was basically. Essentially, it was like if you're gonna sort of lay the blame at the foot of something, I wouldn't even necessarily blame Asmodee. Like I take a really, really broad view of things, and to my mind, it's just another symptom of essentially late stage vulture capitalism. because the only reason that everybody at FFG lost their jobs and AMG was given 3 new games to develop for, but not enough resources to actually do a proper job on those games. They didn't get the staff from FFG. It wasn't a merger. They got a couple of people, but essentially the workforce was just shrunk. And the only reason that happened was because one gigantic multinational conglomerate wanted to house flip and sell everything to another giant multinational conglomerate. So like the bird's eye view is just so far beyond any individual decision of anyone, even though Asmodee is a big company, a tiny piece of a bigger pie. So like it all comes down to forces that are so vast and so sort of fundamental to our economic system that you can't, I don't blame AMG. I feel like they tried with what they had available. I don't blame Asmodee necessarily. Some order came from somewhere that a certain number of jobs had to get cut. And so that's just how it works. It's unfortunate. But like, I think people lose sight of that because that's not who they're interacting with. That's not what they're seeing on a daily basis. And so I think it's kind of like a force of nature almost that everybody got caught up in at a fundamental level. And I think that's becoming increasingly clear to people as they sort of watch, Boeing, these big companies that have kind of fallen apart in the name of profit. And so that's kind of where I lay the blame. If we're going to lay the blame anywhere, I don't think I know that AMG got a lot of backlash, which I think is unfortunate. I don't agree with everything they did, but I don't believe that they were put in a position to succeed in the first place. And that's kind of where I'm at with the whole situation.
Yeah. And the other point that, by the way, all great points, and you are correct. It's not Asmodeus like the conglomerate section, and it's just at the end of the day, it's just an accounting guy, not an accounting guy, but like a CFO somewhere saying like, hey, this is what you need to do to make it work. The other part about complexity is one of the good levers that I think AMG made that I'm happy that XWA is taking on, and I want to have your opinion on this one, is the standard loadouts, like the standard loadouts so that you can separate the ships from the rest of, so that when you build a ship, and let's say like a jump master, and you want this jump master to shoot automatic torpedoes. Yes, I think, did you design the jump master?
I did. It's like my most probably I have three notorious development designs for X-Wing, and I have to apologize to anyone who's ever suffered at the hands of these. But first of all, the first edition TIE Phantom, a little too spicy, a little too gross, especially with the bidding system and permanent initiative. I think some newer players got absolutely hosed by Whisper and Echo, and so they probably came in a little too hot. The second one, I can't remember if this was pre or post Jump Master. I think it was pre Jump Master, but the K-Wing. Was it post Jump Master? I can't remember. Anyway, K-Wing and Twin Laser Turret specifically. And then the probably the most notorious thing was Triple Jump Master, Triple Contracted Scout was just a little too good.
Yeah.
And nobody, there's also something to be said about, if you're going to err on the side of too powerful, it should be like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, not like Dengar's wife, Manoru, who, nobody knows from Adam, right?
Well, everybody knows her now.
So that was, I had to fly Jet Master at Worlds just for the memes of it, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
I just
on the, no, I was going to say, I don't know. Well, you can go, Ryan. I mean, not Ryan, James, but the about the standard loadout, like your opinion on the standard loadout for this format.
Great idea. Really good idea. It's basically a better version of the quick build cards that we came out with for 2.0. The quick build cards were fine. It was a fine idea, but you still had to collect all the upgrade cards. It wasn't a nice, easy, convenient thing from just a component standpoint. And quick builds were not like particularly good, so there's no real reason to run them in a standard game. So anything, I mean, one thing I've learned as a developer on living games is if it doesn't apply to the standard format, it might as well not exist. Because has anyone of you played a quick build game ever? I'm guessing
I-
not.
That
I did a Gen
that-
Con
that-
when it first came out.
that Chewy
Gen Con.
Falcon with all the crew on it. That Falcon is amazing.
I'll say the
It's good.
the most notorious quick build for me was the Sunfog who got ensnare and afterburners, and I was like, oh no.
That was pretty gross. But I will readily admit that standard loadout is a better implementation of that idea. More thought went into it. It's part of the standard game rather than sort of a side thing. So yeah, really good idea. Really good way to get people into the game without having to make them, build a ship with all the custom upgrade cards or like chase upgrade cards or that sort of thing. So the only problem I think with standard loadouts is if you combine that with a fairly limited point system, it's hard to balance them, right? Because like I saw a lot of Luke and Wedge,
Yes.
at Worlds, and well, I think they came in at what 5 points a pop
5 points
Yeah.
each.
in standard loadout form. So the problem with the AMG point system is they're probably not worth 6 points, but they're definitely too good for 5. So what do? It's a standard loadout. You can't adjust their upgrade points. The point system's not granular enough to make necessary fine corrections. So you're just stuck either having them cost too much or too little. So I think the standard loadouts are a great idea. I think they would function a lot better in a 200 point or 100 point or whatever more granular system that's disconnected from the whole like upgrade card cost and ship points cost. So yeah, great idea. I think they suffer because you see a lot of the really good ones over and over again because there's very little ability to put them where they need to be from a list building perspective.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean,
but
I did the same thing. I took the best ships that were available in Scum. They didn't really have a lot of standard loadouts, but I'm still taking like, oh, Manor is only 5 points. That seems like a bargain. She's got a million upgrade cards. Joy Rekoff is like a budget wedge. For 4 points, you get a Fang, a pretty no frills Fang, but you get Beskar and you get agility reduction, which is huge. Fenn is a solid. I mean, I don't think he's quite as good as some of the others, but he's a solid 6 points. So you just choose what's best in class. If there's a lot of different 6 point ships in the Scum arsenal, you pick the best one you pick the best tool for the job. And standard loadout just kind of accelerates that problem because there's even less granularity. You can't adjust the upgrade card side of things, which is I think how you balance out some of those pilots if it's not a standard loadout.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was like a promotional version of the quick builds late in FFG where because I remember there was like an A-list Sakura quick build, but it was on the tarot size card. I think like you guys had started that design early of like it almost like was like the prequel to the standard loadouts. Even between the quick builds and standard loadouts, those were like for a special store event that you had for stores to like you would like build you like take these quick builds and like put them together, but they were like full cards, so the rules of the things were all there.
Oh, I don't even remember that. It's been so long, but yeah, I mean, clearly it was going in that direction. But I think the two things that standard loadouts do better is that one card system, and then also they made them a part of the standard game, which makes them relevant in a way that the quick builds were not. I think there was some talk about having like a quick builds alternative format. Even if we had done that, I don't know that it would have taken off particularly. Generally with competitive games, there's, unless you're Magic, right, which has been around forever and has developed a lot of alternative formats, there's kind of one main way to play at a competitive level. And that's what everyone's going to do, even casually. That's what people are going to do. There might be some side stuff. There might be some team events. There's some alternative ways to play. But by and large, whatever the standard way to play is, that's what everyone's going to do. So I think for quick builds, it would have been smarter to integrate those into the main play experience if we wanted that to be, a good intro bridge kind of thing, which I think standard loadouts do, which is the correct decision from that perspective.
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly touch on, some of those notorious design pieces that you had a direct hand in, and I just think it's funny that I think we're just now at the point where those design pieces are about done paying for the sins of their fathers, and they're allowed back in.
For their sins.
Yeah, because we're just now starting to see like Jumpmasters really be a little bit more competitive. I mean, we have one coming out in the XWA recent standard loadouts, and then also K-Wings just got like re-released back into like the main standard line and XWA line. So, and then hopefully maybe we'll get a reformed TLT at some point from XWA that is a little bit more a little bit fairer, let's say.
I think a TLT that's fixed to a single arc that you have to rotate would be okay. I think.
With the current rules, it would only limit it
on.
to a singular bonus shot. I think before you were getting the primary shot, then the TLT, or you were getting the TLT and then a bonus TLT at the end for a total of 4 shots.
I think the TLT just let you shoot twice. If I'm remembering correctly, you
yeah,
had
but
to make
the
2 attacks.
The VCX got a bonus attack at the end of the game, like in that yeah, the VCX got a bonus attack at the end of the round, which then allowed it to shoot a TLT and then a TLT again. So that was a total of 4 dice rolls.
Yeah, that was pretty disgusting. Yeah.
And by the way, since we're burning you guys, there's a harpoon missile question as well in there somewhere.
Harpoon missiles weren't me, so pass the buck on that one.
It's kind of funny how many people how many people were like super concerned about harpoon missiles back in 1.0, but it was mainly because it was the one missile that didn't require you to spend the lock to shoot at the time in 1.0. Whereas we come to 2.0 and majority of the missiles and torpedoes let you keep the lock as just a requirement to shoot it. All of us are harpoon missiles now.
Well, basically that's just math, right? One of the flaws in 1.0 is that ordnance was just not worth taking because you had to spend the lock. So when you actually crunched the numbers on it, a 3 dice attack with a target lock was better than shooting a torpedo, because if you're spending the lock to roll 4 dice, that's just mathematically worse. So some niche builds were able to stack enough mods on a torpedo shot to make that kind of interesting, but it was the exception to the rule rather than the rule. So the 2 things that we did in 2.0 were, well, why would you have to spend the lock on the torpedo? Let's get rid of that immediately, and now they're suddenly viable. And then 2, shooting once per game was just not enough, so we added charges, which is a little fiddly. It's more to keep track of, but it makes ordnance a lot more viable. So in 1.0, basically what you saw is, because we had no way to adjust points values, because we had no way to modify the core fundamentals of the game or change card text in any way, other than in sort of dire emergencies with errata and whatnot, we basically just had to do missiles better, because there's kind of no point in just doing more bad stuff, right? Like if your existing ordnance is bad, you can balance to that power level and make a bunch of upgrade cards that no one's going to play on a competitive level, or you can try to solve the problem. So a lot of the late 1.0 missile torpedo cards are dramatically better than early missile and torpedo cards, because early missile and torpedo cards were just fundamentally not worth taking, just on a mathematical level. So yeah, 2.0, we just took the lessons that we learned in 1.0 and basically just baked that into the system. But that's why the weirder missiles in 1.0 are the only viable ones, is because they came out later, and the iconic stuff did not benefit from years of development experience and watching the meta and all that stuff. So it's that was one of the nicer things about 2.0 is actually being able to like make the really iconic ships, pilots, upgrades, whatever, good and worth taking, and just fundamentally, because 1.0 had the problem where a lot of the good stuff was late period stuff, and it was like people you'd never heard of, weapons, the bizarre weapons that were in like one comic book 25 years ago. We were scraping the bottom of the barrel of content because it was also pre-Disney. So like we were literally just running out of stuff to do that was canonically accurate, even mining the EU for stuff. We were literally running out of ship types. We were running out of everything. We were going to probably go into the Clone Wars eventually, but we decided to wait till 2.0 to do that just because we'd have more ways to differentiate between different factions and stuff like that. But yeah, that's why harpoon missiles are good and proton torpedoes are bad in 1.0. It's just a matter of time and when they came out and what we knew when that card was created. So
you said in that response as well, you talked about how like the addition of charges on those type of secondary weapons, and how you said it was like a little fiddly. Do you? And I sometimes think about the design that was used in Legion, the cycle mechanic. Would you ever think that? Do you think the charge system is still something that is still valuable in X-Wing, or like how could the cycle system, like in Legion, in that keyword, is there anything that you would take from that in any aspect? I mean, we have reloading as an action in the game, but I don't know if it's a controversial take to say it's a very punishing action to take.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that's the problem with Legion too. I think AMG got rid of cycling like completely, and I can understand why, because it was another one of those things where the opportunity cost to like reload something or not get a shot every turn is really hard to balance. Proton, what is it? Is proton cannons that do it pretty well, where you get one really nasty shot that slowly recharges. That's a decent way to do it because the shot is significant enough that you don't mind waiting for it to come back. But having to spend a whole action on reload is really tough. So I think, I think if it was a different system where it would just sort of like, if it was more like proton cannons, that might have been a solution. If it was something where like to get rid of the token aspect of it, you exhausted the card and then discarded the card or something like that, just to prevent having those components. But I don't mind the charge system from a game design perspective. Like I think it's the best system from that perspective. The only downside is just more little fiddly things to worry about. So it's sort of a question of like what's the critical mass of like too many upgrade cards, too many charges, too many this and that. Like I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I will say that in 2.0, when it was a 200 point system, you had to think really hard about every upgrade card that you put on your ship. So the charge system was designed with that in mind. We didn't expect people to have 18 upgrade cards in their list, because that just wouldn't be competitive. So you would see maybe 2, 4, 6 charges in a list, right? My list was, what did I have? I had Beskar on Fen and Joy, so that's 4. Then I had a Burnout Thrusters on Fen, so that's 5. I had Overtune Modulators, that's 6. I had Plasma Torpedoes, that's 8. I think is that it? 8, but that's a lot.
Joy,
right?
Joy.
That's not a lot. I've brought 20 plus charges.
Torpedoes, 10.
Yeah.
10. Right. Well, so yeah, exactly. Right. But that would not have happened in a 2.0 world, right? In a 200 point system. So I think part of it is like, just we were not anticipating the game. 2.0 was not designed for that quantity of upgrade cards in a competitive setting. So I think that's part of my issue with the point system is it, there's no reason not to max out all of your upgrade cards every time. So you just have a lot of stuff. Did I need Migs Mayfield and a double tap on Manaru? No, but I might as well take it because I have all these points to spend. I think I fired it. I think I double tapped maybe 2 or 3 times in the whole tournament.
You did it on stream.
You know,
we were very excited.
On stream?
I did.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think that was the first real use of MIGs
worked.
ever.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. But my point being, like, the only reason I even attempted that was because I had a bunch of upgrade card points that I couldn't figure out anything better to do with. So that's, I think, the sort of flaw of the system. Charges aren't so bad when there's not a bajillion of them, I guess is what I'm saying ultimately. They're a little clumsy just in terms of a component standpoint, but they're not too. I think they're the best. They're the best alternative of the alternatives that are out there, because one and done is really hard to balance around, and having flexibility on charges is really nice from a design perspective. So I think that I don't have any problem with charges, but I recognize that there's a sort of there's an opportunity cost with them as a design, which is just that it's a little more fiddly, it's a little less cleanly in the play area and that kind of thing. Just something you have to think about when you're doing stuff, and not do too much of that.
Yeah, and from a notoriously messy player, I will tell you that it does get a little bit hard to mix when you have 20 or 25 charges, because then they start like, wait, I flipped this one, but is this one for this one or is this one for that one? And then for the opponent, I think it gets harder because the opponent's trying to keep track of what you've got going on, and when you've got 20 tokens on your side of the board, it just makes it a little bit more hard for the opponent to just take a quick glance and be like, okay, what does that person have available this turn?
Yeah, that's why.
And it's not only those tokens as well; it's also the force, because then you have to keep track of the charges,
shields,
but then you get the force, and it's just so many tokens.
Yeah.
I think if I could go back and redo 2.0 a little bit, I wouldn't change the charge mechanic or the force mechanic necessarily, but I would probably try a lot harder to make cards that are charge cards into not charge cards wherever possible. I think there's probably some pruning that you could do, and certain charge-based cards could probably be designed in such a way that they wouldn't require charges. And I think that's kind of the thing, right? The design tool is great to have. I think in a lot of cases it makes complete sense, but in some cases, maybe it's better to not have a charge at all, or to do some other way of doing that mechanic. Overtune modulators is kind of a good example of how that might work. I feel like there's a version of that could be charge free. I don't know what that is exactly, but it feels like any card with just one charge on it feels like there's maybe some way to make that viable. I don't really know.
You just put the 3 calculates on the card and say gain these.
Is that where?
Sure.
Yeah, or is that where a sideboard comes in, or a discharge pile maybe?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about it more. But I think in a world where where you're only taking 7 or 8 upgrade cards tops, it's a lot less cumbersome. In a world where every ship has a separate upgrade points allotment, you just get a lot more cards on the table, and that comes with some complexity creep issues and component creep issues. But I also take responsibility. Trained at Fantasy Flight, we love our tokens. every Fantasy Flight game's got a lot of tokens. They're very useful as a design tool, and so we maybe abused them a little bit as designers there and developers at Fantasy Flight.
I'll say from the perspective of trying to design some cards now, that the charge system as it is allows to control sort of if I want something to not happen every turn, but I want it to happen not in 2 turns in a row because it could be oppressive, but I also don't want it. I want it it controls frequency really well. I want this effect to be in the game, but I don't want it to happen this many amount of turns either in a row or this many amount of turns in general in the game. So how many charges do I need? How many recurring arrows does it need? Do we need to have 2 charges only and just say there's no recurring charge, so you can use this twice a game? Or do we need it to be a 2 charge where it has 1 recurring and you can only use it when you have 2 to spend, or even 3, like a Leia crew, right? When it's a powerful effect that you might not want to have only happen more than twice a game. So
yeah, I think it's a good system. It's a logical system. When you have something like a finite number of missiles that you're shooting, it makes sense that it would be more than once per game. It lets you do cool stuff like cluster missiles. I think is a really good design, even though I was on the receiving end of a few cluster missile barrages that did not go my way over the course of the tournament. Like it's a logical thing that you can either shoot them slowly or fire them all at once. And yeah, it just makes sense. So if the downside is a little bit of component fiddliness, I think it's well worth it for having a good mechanic and a good design tool in the game. It's just something you have to factor in, when you're looking at things kind of holistically. You have to understand that every little cool thing that you add does create some, more of a burden to getting into the game and reduces that kind of simplicity a little bit. I think I'm becoming more minimalist as a designer as I get older, which I think is if you can make a game that's really simple and also deep, I think you've really succeeded as a game designer. It's really hard to do, really hard to do.
Well, I want to keep
speak
on. Let me ask here. I got kind of a two-parter, maybe that. Speaking of tokens, there's been a lot of changes in the recent years of X-Wing. Strains, depletes coming out as new penalty tokens. As far as the mechanics of the game, seeing the Clone Wars actually in full force and stuff, what is kind of your impression of the late stage ships and content of X-Wing?
I'd honestly have to go back and look at stuff because I have just not been plugged in for a really long time. And I was never really like a Separatist or Republic player, nor was I really a big part of the design team on those factions. I sort of, my sort of tenure on the game, I sort of faded into the background starting with 2.0 actually like coming into existence. Like I was very involved with creating 2.0, sort of creating that reset, but then I wasn't as heavily involved with the launch of like Republic and Separatist stuff as factions. There's a ton of stuff I really like in there. Like I love grappling struts as an idea. I think they're really cool. I think it's just a question of like how do you rein in a game that has 7 playable factions and an ocean of content, and the release model is just always more, right? Like it was never something like Magic or even Netrunner eventually had like a rotation period. Anything that you made for X-Wing was in the game forever, and you could eventually we got to the point where we had points adjustments built in, but there were no points adjustments in 1.0. Any upgrade card you made was just that was in the game now, for till the end of time. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons to that kind of like constant additive model from both a player and a business perspective. But at some point it becomes sort of just too much for the game to bear. And that's true from like a SKUs on the wall perspective, just actual products in a game store. If that gets too big, then it's a problem for the game store because they can't move the older stuff. It's a problem for players who come in and see 50 products on the wall and go, whoa, this is, too much for me. But the benefits, of course, are that you keep, it's a lifestyle game. You keep people engaged. You keep coming out with new content, which keeps things fresh. I mean, I was honestly, the biggest surprise for me with AMG is they just didn't really make any new ships. And I'm not surprised that they couldn't really sell much because the whole model was predicated on pairing ships and upgrade cards and like creating new content. And they did do some cool new development, but they didn't tie it to a physical product really. Like you could buy card packs, but that's not going to keep the lights on, So I think that the biggest problem with their approach was they just didn't create products, or the products that they did create were not, particularly profitable or really like driving a lot of enthusiasm. I think there's great designs and stuff in there. There's really good stuff that got added to the game, but like from a product perspective, just kind of nothing came out. All of the stuff that came out under AMG's, AMG's time on the game was stuff that had been made by FFG and was just getting released, eventually, like the Razor Crest, right, or whatever. Like it was just stuff that came out, So that's kind of it's tough though, because it's like eventually this stuff does collapse under its own weight. And how do you balance out a game that just never stops growing? Like how do you hit the reset button on that? And I don't have an answer when it comes to X-Wing, because we did a full reset once, and then we never had to confront the issue in 2.0 of just now there's too much stuff, because we didn't get there. We didn't grow that fast.
So I have a question for you, and I don't know if this was before your time or during your time, because this was before. It was before my time. It was before I started playing. But Epic. So talking about Epic, and specifically about the what is it called? The Empire one, like
The Raider.
The Raider.
The Raider and the Corvette.
Yeah.
So something specifically about those, though. Speaking about business, and if you got other stories, because you had a story there, so I want to hear the story. But specifically about that on the business side, again, on the business side, I bought a Corvette and I bought a Raider. One reason only. Never had intention to play in it. I spent $100 on it because I bought a $100 C-3PO and Palpatine. Yes,
Yeah.
I had a $100 C-3PO. I had a $100 Palpatine. So my question to you, as a no longer employed by FFG, is were those decisions made ahead of time, saying like, okay, we need to push this on, or was that just the product of like, oh God, now we just have a $100 C-3PO?
No, that was honestly like just. I mean, I don't even know if it was a mistake, because it did drive a lot of sales, but it was not our intention. It was not our intention.
It was an
like,
unintended profitable mistake.
Kind of, yeah. And I think there's an argument to be made that you shouldn't lock important main game content behind such a high price point. Like, I don't think we would ever have done that deliberately. And we moved away from that as a company, or FFG moved away from that almost completely in 2.0 by removing chase content entirely, which I think was its own kind of mistake from a sales perspective anyway. But no, I don't think we ever expected C-3PO to be all that good. We didn't really. That was kind of like, that was our first product, right? So that was Frank and I's first product. We knew, C-3PO is a pretty iconic character. We want to give him a good ability. We didn't really realize how crushingly good it would be on a Falcon, or how much defensive value. So that was, I think, more the case of being green designers and not really grasping the significance or quality of that upgrade card. Like, we just didn't quite get it. Palpatine was my design, and I knew he was good, but it was also the only place that we were ever going to be able to do an Emperor Palpatine, probably, just from a product perspective, because you have to go through Lucasfilm licensing. It has to make sense, right? Like, one of the things that they're thinking about is like, does this upgrade card make sense? You can't just jam him into a random TIE Fighter expansion.
Pack. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So it was the only opportunity to do a Palpatine, and I knew he was good, but again, I think I underestimated quite how good he was and how necessary he was to certain Imperial Aces builds. And with Palpatine, we tried to kind of make him a little bit more of a niche thing by making him a double crew slot, but again, a little stronger than anticipated. And so, like, I can understand, like, from the outside looking in, it's like, they put these really great cards in these really expensive ships. I can tell you that it was not anybody's intention from like a business side of things or from like a development side of things to do that. It just sort of happened.
This sounds like the old judges. It was not malicious intent.
Right? No, not at all. I mean, I think it's again, it's a tricky balance to walk too, because like, we didn't want to make cards that nobody wanted. So I don't think we intended to make them as competitively,
especially iconic stuff like C-3PO.
Right?
And
yeah. I mean, arguably C-3PO shouldn't be a crucial part of any team, because he kind of isn't as a character. But Palpatine certainly should be powerful, right? From a lore perspective. And so it's a little ironic that C-3PO was just so good, because all he really does in the movies is annoy Han. But he was a crucial part of every winning Falcon build for a long time. So yeah, no, that was totally circumstantial, accidental. I think we did pretty well not repeating that mistake with the Gazanti and other epic ships that came out later. There was stuff in there that was like good, but there was nothing crazy. And so we deliberately tried to make sure there was not another must buy $100 product out there. Counterpoint, of course, is that we sold a lot of Raiders and Corvettes.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
Counterpoint, it works really well.
Yeah, well, it's a balance, right? Because you want to be friendly to consumers, and obviously you don't want to like rake your customers over the coals or do anything that's sort of like loot boxy and insidious. But you do as a business need to sell product, or the game goes away. And
Well,
I think that's
plus
just the
to
reality.
you guys,
of a
not to you
product
guys,
as a
but
game.
yeah, plus to the X-wing side is that yes, you were buying $100 Palpatine and you were buying $100 C-3PO, but you were also getting a very cool pre-painted model that was like big and you can put it on the display. So that kind of took a little bit of the pain away because they are really good looking models, and the Raider specifically, you can actually like flip it, and then the back side of it turns into a really cool shot glass, and then you can take shots out of the Raider. So know that from personal experience.
I've never
So
done that. I'll have to take a Raider shot one day.
oh, there's pictures out there
We'll
if you
try.
look for them.
We'll get you in on
Yeah.
it next time.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Well, and I will say that, like, from a dev perspective, like a ton of work went into those epic ships because they had full campaigns. They had their own whole rule set. Like, more work went into those expansions, and like in some cases, like a full wave of 4 individual starfighters, just because there was so much content to produce. Didn't end up being like the most popular game mode, but I know a lot of people who just loved Epic. And I think with 2.0, one of the things I'm sad about 2.0 is that we had plans to do Epic kind of better than ever. I think there were a bunch of great mechanics, in place that just never got expanded on, never got like we wanted to do an official tournament mode that was Epic play. We wanted to really spend more time getting the competitive balance of it right and to make it a smoother experience. Again, learned a lot of lessons from the original Epic ships and what worked and what didn't work about them. They were a little too clunky, a little too weak, honestly, in first edition. They just didn't generate enough energy, didn't do enough damage, weren't actually really like an asset. So that's great. So yeah, I am a little sad that we never got to fully explore like what a 2.0 Epic world would have looked like, because I think, in our internal playtests at least, it was really promising and I think would have been super fun. So yeah, maybe something to revisit with XWA at some point. The foundation is there to do something cool with Epic if that ever becomes a thing. I don't know how easy it is to get a Corvette or a Raider these days, but
we're trying to convince Ryan to let him into just standard competitive play. Figure it out, Ryan. let us
might be a bit too far, but it will be interesting.
Figure it out.
Interesting experiment.
Make him 15 points. Let me get him on the board, Ryan.
Sounds like the Super Star Destroyers in Armada.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that was a real challenge. Like that barely works in the standard game, but that was we wanted to get it in the standard game because if you don't put it in the standard game, it kind of just gets sidelined. It's kind of what I've been saying, earlier in this conversation. If it doesn't fit into the main mode of play, it probably won't take off. People might enjoy it. It's maybe worth doing anyway, but it will always be a sideshow. So with the Superstar Destroyer, it's like, does this thing really make sense with its size and its power to be in a regular game of Armada? Not really, but we want it to be because we want people to feel like the purchase is worthwhile. And people did take it to tournaments. I don't know that it ever won anything major, but it was technically playable. Now, I think the best use case for the Superstar Destroyer was in like a big, multiplayer game, like either the Corellian campaign or just like a big...
battle.
Yeah, just like a big like let's do a 3v3, right? Like have a big cool fight. I think that's the best use case for the Superstar Destroyer. But because it was actually in the standard game, I think a lot more people were interested in it because it wasn't just its own, I can only play this, at epic scale, or if I'm playing an 800-point game or whatever. So we just made a really weak version that could sort of barely fit into standard. And then we made the proper Super Star Destroyer in its like full power form. And that kind of worked. I mean, it was sort of the only reason we did it in the first place is because it's such an iconic ship and people wanted the miniature. From a game perspective, it was always going to be very challenging to make that functional within the mechanics, just because of the sheer physical mass of the thing on the tabletop. It's kind of like, epic vehicles in 40K or any, if Legion ever does like an ATTE or something. It's like, maybe you can make this sort of work in the game, but that's not really why you would make the model. You'd make the model because people want the model. So,
Nope. We'll let James go. Stop cutting him off.
Okay, go. What am I missing?
I wanted to look a little bit more abstract, looking at what is like some of the misconceptions players have about game designers in general that you've maybe found.
That's a good question. I think certainly the public thinks we have a lot more power and influence than we do. Generally speaking, I think a healthy relationship between game designer, producer, business side of things, like ideally you're all sort of equal partners in the endeavor. And I think one thing that gets missed a lot is just how much work and expertise and passion that people bring to the games that aren't the developers, right? Like one of the reasons X-Wing was so great is because we had great producers the whole time. We had a great studio manager in John Schaefer, and that really makes a huge difference because your developers should not be having to like call China and work out paint schemes and figure out the P&L of profit margins with distributors. And like there's a ton of stuff that goes into games that is it's really a team effort.
You want to keep those creatives in their little creative bubble. Don't make them go out and think about how much money this is or what it looks like, right?
Yeah, well, it's just a division of labor, right? Like it doesn't make sense to put people who are not necessarily the best at business in charge of business decisions. So I think a lot of times people will either credit or blame developers for things that they had very little influence or control over. Obviously, we at Fantasy Flight, we were lucky enough to have a lot of say. Like it was great that the organized play department talked to us. It was great that the executives would occasionally like ask us, what we thought about product decisions. But, ultimately, there was a lot of stuff that just wasn't in our control. And that's just a reality across the board. Unless you are sort of like an auteur game designer, like Miyazaki or whatever with Elden Ring, you're not generally driving a lot of the larger picture decisions, for better or for worse. So developers largely they're just doing the best they can within a pre-existing ecosystem. They don't necessarily have the ability to, change things much. You can kind of lean on the rudder. You can make a lot of noise about this, that, or the other thing. Maybe you'll be listened to, but in general, they're not empowered with the ability to like chart the overall course of a game or game line or anything like that.
So you're saying you're not to blame for the long, the dreaded on the boat status on the FFG status.
I can confidently say that I hit all of my deadlines. That's all. That's the only thing that was under my control.
We were.
You know what?
That was a fun one from a player perspective of always having that looming over. It's like it's on the boat, but like, where's that boat?
Well, the thing is that the boat can only do a one red straight, so then it has to do a blue stop maneuver. Exactly. Really failed on the dial department, honestly. Like if I could go back and redesign the dial of the shipping boat, then I would probably give it. Yeah, I would give it a better dial. But that's not even in like Asmodee's control. That's like Alliance, international shipping. Like that's whatever. Like you do the best you can and you hope that your cargo gets where it's going on time. But it doesn't always happen.
Speaking of ships, it's crazy they said, but I just had the scraping the bottom of the barrel that you said for ship content because I just remember specifically like seeing the game. I was like, Shadows of the Empire. They got the Shadows of the Empire ship and Kyle Katarn's ship from Dark Forces. I was like, these guys know their Star Wars. But if
Well,
you
those
could,
those were like on the A list of ships. I'm talking about like who amongst you had ever heard of a K-wing before it came out in
no,
X-wing? Who'd ever heard of the tie? I don't even remember what it's called, but like the super bomber. That's like 8 bombers
oh, the
crammed together.
Punisher, yeah,
The Punisher.
I
That's
yeah,
literally like a sprite from a forgotten RTS game. That was like the
sure
third
is,
upgrade tree
sure
of
is.
like that's what I'm talking about when I say we were out of stuff. So it's good that
Okay.
it's for better or worse, Disney swooped in and made a lot of new stuff that we could produce, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like 2 whole new factions that we got to do. Obviously, Clone Wars, was another place that we were gonna go when we ran out of stuff to do. We were whether that was going to be 1.0 or 2.0 was the only question there, but we were always going to do that because we knew we needed new content. But yeah, I mean, we were running out of original trilogy timeline stuff to do in a big way. I don't think there's anything. The only thing that we didn't do is a TIE Avenger. I think people would have liked to see a TIE Avenger, but other than that, I
Uh,
think we pretty much hit it all.
that's what I was going to ask you. Is there obviously if there's one that you were like passionate about, like we have to put this in the game, and then on the flip side, is there one that you were like, why didn't we put this into the game?
Yeah, I would say the TIE Avenger probably should have made its way in. I think that was the plan eventually. It was going to come out at some point for 2.0. But there kept being the thing with 2.0 is there kept being a lot of, we would always prioritize whatever was in the new canon,
Mm-hmm.
because it was more relevant to people, more available, more in current media.
It
So
also makes the mouse
Avenger,
happy when you put their stuff in, right?
yeah, I mean it makes sense, right? Like why wouldn't you be engaging with the current content that's out there? Why would you be reaching back 25 years to an old, novel when you can produce something that's like in a current show? It's like that's just a good business decision. It's a good lore decision. It just makes sense. So the Avenger was, I think, on the list, but it just kept getting displaced. Like Rebels came out with a new TIE Defender, and like, oh, that's an obvious choice. Everyone loves the TIE Defender. We'll do an update to that design or whatever. So that's the only one that like we. I would probably have done the Avenger instead of the Punisher, as much as I kind of love the Punisher for being such a weird artifact and for having such a goofy design. Um, but I mean, other than that, like I can't complain. I got everything I wanted. I got all the bounty hunters from the original trilogy. I got all this cool scum stuff. Like that was the scene that like really captured my imagination as a kid. Just that scene in Empire Strikes Back where there's a bunch of weirdos on the bridge, and you don't know anything about them really. They look freaky. They're interesting. They've obviously got a reputation. And so I was very happy that we got them into the game. I did, of course, read all the old EU bounty hunter books of various
Right.
quality, and that sort of informed some of the designs. But like that was the little kid glee moment. Was like, oh yeah, we get to put these guys in the game that I'm working on and make pilots out of them, and that's just cool because I had all the action figures as a kid, and
Right.
they were,
Oh.
for whatever reason, those 5 weirdo freaks were my favorite random tertiary Star Wars characters. So I got to do them, so I'm
That's
pleased.
so the whole scum faction basically is might be
Yeah, I was
answer.
very happy to get that in the game. Yeah, I was very happy to get that in the game. I think it was good to have a third option at that point in time, for a little bit more list diversity and stuff like that. And it was cool to have new design space to work in, and to have some a new identity for ships and more of the like dirty tricks kind of faction rather than just the nimble but easily destroyed Imperials and then the tanky teamwork focused rebels, it was nice to have a third option of just like, these are terrible people and they will blow you up when you try to blow up their ship.
Yeah.
So,
I was saying that I was playing when it came out, and yeah, just like the Hawk and Dash the ship, I was like, they're name dropping Guri and Caesar. Like these guys,
yep.
they're going crazy on their X-wing lore.
Yeah, these guys EU. Yeah.
Yeah, geez.
Well, Shadows of the Empire gave us what? How many ships? At least
Oh,
two
man,
ships, 3 ships, and a bunch of pilots, and just a bunch of lore. And I would go back and I would reread whatever novel was, inspiring the latest wave of ships. Some of them better than others, obviously. Some of them real bad, but some of them kind of good. Like I still kind of dig the Tales of the Bounty Hunter short stories. Some of them are better than others, but it was nostalgic to go back and reread those as an adult, and kind of reassess their literary merit as well as mine them for X-Wing content.
Right. Well, we are getting to our end point here. Ryan, is there any other questions we haven't covered for Mr. Davy here?
If there's anything in the chat too that people want to know, I'm happy to field a few of those. I haven't had the
while the
quality.
chat is asking, is just gonna ask you like what your, you tipped your toes back into the X-wing water after you said 6 years. I'm assuming, and I'm putting this pressure on Ryan and the rest of the people doing it at the XWA. I'm assuming the XWA people are going to do a good job, and there's going to be people playing for a while. So, what is your where does X-wing fit into your personal hobby space after tipping your toe back into X-wing this time around?
Well, I think it's safe to say that I'm back. I had a really great time. I've gotten to know Stephen Kim. I keep botching their names. Stephen Kim and Louis Leong. I think I've screwed up their names twice now. But Stephen and Louis have been awesome. Getting to know them has been really fun. Getting to reconnect with the community has been really fun. And I think just fundamentally, I just really like playing X-Wing. And I think there was a bit of, like I said before, a salt mountain to climb before I could get back into enjoying the game just as a game. Due to all of the sort of circumstances surrounding losing my influence, losing my input on the system directly. But it was a really good experience for me.
We can fix that. We have XWA
right?
Open.
I mean, I won't say no. I don't know how much I can contribute, and I don't want to step on any toes, but I'm certainly willing to like look things over and have conversations. It's definitely been fun to dive back in. But yeah, I plan to make X-Wing a yearly tradition in Milwaukee. It's a really easy place for me to go. I'm already planning to go to Adepticon as a fan every year. It's only like a 5-hour drive, and I'll probably start doing a little bit of local stuff too. If there's tournaments that crop up around the Twin Cities area, I joined the TC X-Wing Discord. So yeah, I don't know that it's going to be, it's ever going to be like an all-consuming thing, because I play a lot of minis games. That's kind of my big obsession. But it's definitely risen to the top of what I'm interested in the near future at any rate. It was very fun to play Worlds. I'm already thinking about, going again next year, and I'm really excited for what XWA is doing. I looked at the Bosk, the Fen, and the Boba Fett that just dropped, and they are pretty spicy. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to see list building with a little bit more new ships. Like the Star Viper wasn't even a choice that I could bring. I couldn't bring Zuckuss. It was a very, very small list of viable scum pilots in AMG points. So it's nice to see just some more options back in the game, some more chips back in the game, more chassis. So I'm excited about that. TLDR, I'm back in, baby. We back, baby.
Well, I know up in the Twin Cities they got a fantastic squad up there. They play out of the Dragon Brewery. Oh, I forget the name of it now. I've been up there a couple times. Dungeons and Dragon Lance.
I'll have to check that out. I know there's some
Lambo Low
people
in
who
our chat
do
will
it
tell
at
me.
the games center as well. But yeah, I plan to do more local stuff, more sort of regional events. Can't probably ever do Gen Con because I'll always be working Gen Con, assuming I'm employed at the time. It's not that's a show you kind of can't escape from. But doing
Sure.
Adepticon every year sounds like a great plan. So
Yeah, and actually, that's the another question is just what are you up to now? I don't think we really talked about that. Like what you're up to
oh
now, and
yeah, we should probably go into that. My headphones are about to die, so I'm just gonna swap them out for.
Swap them out for what? It's a joke. It's a joke because we can't hear you.
Oh, we're giving him a second.
Well,
yeah,
we'll
I
give him
think
a
he's
second.
he's swapping out the audio. Yeah,
That was Under Pressure Brewery. I'll let him know.
Yeah.
under
If-
pressure. I think Lambola was mentioning something
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name. I thought it just looks like dragons and stuff, but
News
And
on
that's
his
the
current
cast,
work.
folks.
He's being taken out. He's not
Yep.
allowed to talk about it.
he's like talk about other games. They're like, nope, get out of here.
Yeah.
and NDA in effect.
Yeah.
I'll give
You'll
him
jump back
one
then
bit
in a
here.
minute.
But,
Yeah.
while he's waiting on that, we got to talking to him, and yeah, he's moved on to WizKids with some D&D miniatures. Moving on to HeroScape. I don't think that's WizKids. I think that's something different.
That's Renegade.
That's
Renegade
Renegade.
Games. Yeah,
It's
he worked
been-
at WizKids for a little bit with. Oh, he's back. Maybe.
I am back. I'm back on audio. I'm going to try to get back on video here in just a second.
No, it's
I
totally
had to
fine.
swap my headphones. It destroyed all of my settings.
I know.
Let's try.
We're going long,
Very-
but
very
we're having a great
created
time
set.
talking with you. So, but yeah, we were just talking.
Yeah,
It
you were
was-
saying the
It was the
your-
Under Pressure Brewery, by the way. I forget what part of Roseville that's in, or what the Twin Cities is, but that's where the local group was. But we wanted to hear about what you've been up to. We know you've been working on, or you were working on a D&D miniatures game. You moved over to HeroScape for a while.
I think he's still working.
It up on video. It's just not
Don't worry
not
about the
cooperating.
video.
But
It's-
you can still
Yeah,
Don't
hear
worry about
the
video. It's okay.
of my voice.
can hear you
Yeah,
just
so
fine.
just brief career recap. Yeah, so post FFG, I went over to WizKids. I think there was maybe like a 3 or 4 month gap in between there, and then I was basically design lead at WizKids for a lot of their new games. So I worked on D&D Onslaught, which was a lot of fun. Shout out to Nicholas Yu for great design there. He was a lot of fun to work with, as was Travis Severance and everybody at WizKids as well. And then I also got to work with Michael Gerns and Max Brook again, who were my FFG compatriots on Star Trek Into the Unknown, which is yet another plastic spaceships game. Kind of my little niche in the world, apparently.
Mhm.
Your
And
alma
that is
mater.
a really interesting system. Yeah. Just my goal is to do every little spaceship game in the world, apparently. so that was fun. It's very, very different from any of the stuff that we did at FFG. Not as combat focused, almost a mix of an RPG and a minis game. Definitely worth checking out if you're a Star Trek fan. I think it's very true to the IP, and it's a very cinematic and narrative experience. And then just about exactly a year ago, I think I'm a year and change at this point, I started working at Renegade Game Studios. And so I'm currently leading the HeroScape team over there. So this is the reboot of HeroScape, which went away officially for a long time. I think between, if I'm remembering correctly, 2009 and basically just very recently, the recent re-release has been revived. So that's a game a lot of people remember from their childhoods. Really simple, accessible, but still pretty deep and interesting war game. Great game for kids. So I recommend, like, if you have anyone who's never really done war games before and you like the aesthetic and you like the idea of HeroScape, It's a fun game, and that's what I've been working on for the last year or so. So I've got about a year's worth of content in the bag with my co-developers on that game, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been fun to create things out of nothing rather than just map statistics onto existing characters. So the cool thing about my job now is if I can think of a game mechanic, I can also decide, I want this to be like an angry ankylosaur from a cybernetic future or whatever. Like, because Heroescape is such an interesting and funny world where they've just mishmashed all the different genres together. So I'm enjoying that creative aspect of working on Heroescape a lot.
So, how did you get into? I mean, did you go to school for this, or did you just like
Nope.
go to school something else and just kind of like, hey, let's design some games? Like,
I went
how
to
did you
school for
fall into it?
journalism. I was a journalist for a while, and basically my entire profession in this country died. Like it is not pretty out there for a working journalist. So I was a freelance writer and editor for many years, and my colleague at the very first little local newspaper that I ever worked at, Sam Stewart, we were both reporters at the Lilly Suburban News chain of newspapers, long defunct, as is just about every publication I've ever written for. This is a sorry state of media in this country. But he moved on to Fantasy Flight as an editor in the role-playing department. And when I was a freelancer, he would give me work, essentially. He'd give me stuff to write for the RPGs, mostly the 40K RPGs. And more frequently, he would give me things to edit or proofread. And eventually a job opened up. And at that point, I was like working at a movie theater, working in a hardware store. I was a wedding DJ. I was ostensibly a writer, but cobbling together a meager existence as a freelancer. So I jumped at the chance to do something different. And I didn't even know it was a game design position. I thought it was listed as creative content developer. So it felt more like I'd be writing lore stuff or like doing more of the editorial writing side of things. But after the first interview, they gave me a design test, and they're basically like, hey, design a scenario for Descent second edition. And I was like, wait, is this a game design job? and I was like, and Sam was like, yeah. I was like, wow, it really didn't sound like that in the job description, but that's cool. We'll give it a shot. I like games. I love games. I've always been very, very into gaming. So it was just a great opportunity that came my way, and I was lucky enough to be able to jump on it and lucky enough to get hired. So very sort of unintentional, but I've been doing it for 13, 14 years at this point, since 2011. And I love it. It's a great job.
Yeah, the epitome of you lied on your resume and you got the job and it worked out really well, right?
Well, I didn't even lie. I was like, I my cover letter was all about like, writing skills and stuff. So, I mean, but you have to understand, like in 2011, there really weren't people who were like freshly minted game design degree graduates from college. That just didn't really exist. It's a thing now. I think it was a thing shortly after I graduated, but I graduated in 2005. I don't think there was a game design major even offered by the University of Minnesota. I don't know where that would have been in their liberal arts programming. So it was literally something that I never even thought about as a potential career. Like I thought about going into acting before I thought about going into game design. That's how just not on my radar it was. Because, I grew up, we didn't get a video game system until I was 10. That was back in the days of like Atari and Nintendo. So it's a different world. Like the board game boom was just starting kind of in the early 2000s in the US, or at least I was becoming aware of it at that point. So definitely just not on, anywhere in my plans, but what a great surprise to be able to pivot into a job like this. I'm very thankful for having had that opportunity and for getting to do what I do today.
Oh, we're thankful. I'm thankful because I was one of the ones who abused the triple jump master. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. Then I'm happy for you.
I feel like we have a missed opportunity here for actor Alex Davy, but I guess the game design
Maybe
Alex
that
Davy.
can be my next career.
Yeah.
Just become a character actor. No, the
Yeah.
funny thing is, like, I went into journalism because I thought it was the sensible option, right? Like, I was in creative writing, you know, I was writing novellas and stuff, and I was like, there's no money in that. And I was like, acting, well, unless you get really lucky, there's no money in that. Like, I'll pick a nice, sensible career. And then literally, I graduated, and like the whole industry just fell off a cliff. Like, just like, whoops, maybe acting would have been more stable. I don't know. But I definitely made I made what I thought was a sensible, you know, financial decision that turned out to be not so much. So
You made
life's
an
funny.
adult decision that turned you into working on games.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
there you
Like,
go.
I made it's weird that the supposedly professional, you know, serious career that I thought that I was going to have, you know, failed completely, whereas the fun game design has worked out so far. Very thankful for that, but not at all what I expected to be doing with my career.
Well, it certainly made an impression on a lot of people, especially in the X-Wing community. But,
Yeah, well, it's been great to reconnect. I love the X-Wing community. They every interaction I've had almost exclusively has been positive throughout the last 14 years. I feel so old.
I know it's good. It's
Okay, you're not allowed to say you feel old when we already talked about me being the oldest in this group.
right. Well, it has been
mhm.
so fantastic having you on, Alex.
Yeah.
Really,
It's been great to be here.
Yeah, so wonderful to see you having so much fun at Worlds with everybody else, and that we can still enjoy the game that you helped curate for many years. But
Yeah. And Alex, by the way, if it works out, I know since you're in conversations with Louis already, he's probably going to start pitching you on the Sith Taker Open, which they do in the UK in February.
Oh, that would be super
as
fun.
a precursor to Adepticon. I plan on going, and I know some people on the Western Hemisphere go. So
I miss going to the UK. One of the big perks of FFG is that I got to go to the UK Games Expo every year. I look forward to it every year because I think the UK is a ton of fun. So yeah, if I can swing it, that sounds like a blast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And sorry, William, I cut you off.
No. We. I am hoping there'll be plenty of X-Wing, and we hope to see you on. Hopefully not on the other side of the table, but you know, at events in general. Yeah.
Well, if you meet me at the tabletop, I will be as ruthless as possible. But if you meet me outside of that context, I like to think I'm pretty chill.
That's good. I think everyone's trying to put out that same kind of vibes. So
yeah,
you'll fit right.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be. Well, I'm thrilled to be back flying little ships around. I think the future of X-Wing is bright. And thanks for having me on the podcast tonight. It's been a real pleasure.
No problem. Just want to, before we get out of here, remind everybody we streamed on YouTube. If you don't have Twitch, the video on demand, if that's not what you're interested, go to YouTube. They're already up there. We're working on cutting them down, doing some editing, blah, blah, blah. But after a week of work, we took a week off. So haven't started those processes yet. But they're all out there. Go watch the finals of 19 games we recorded. So anybody interested in, they're on there right now. We'll cut them down, though. We got some ideas planned. But had a fantastic time in Worlds. So excited to talk about it next week. Find out how Marcel keeps getting into these events, why his list, and
I paid a registration fee. That's how I got into the event.
Well, who lets you into the final cuts? We'll find out more next week. But for now, check out the Discord, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/goldsquadron, and check us here on Twitch. When we go live, if you're listening to this in like a podcast format later on, we do stream these live, so check us out on Twitch as well. But for everybody here, thank you so much for watching and joining us. joining us all at Worlds. Big shout out. We're going to give all our thanks to everybody next episode on it. So if we're like, whoa, wait till next week. Anyways,
Yeah,
for now.
Any last call outs for you, Alex?
Oh yeah. Alex. Any shout outs here before we leave?
Yeah, shout out to Louis Liang and Stephen Kim for being for getting me back into the game and for being awesome to prep with. I don't think I would have done nearly as well if they hadn't schooled me a bunch on TTS. So, and thanks for the swag. Really appreciate it.
Well, not bad people. I mean, they both made the cut, so not bad people to prep with.
Oh yeah,
they knew what they're doing. They weren't steering you
they know what they're
astray. Awesome. Well, we'll be back next time. For now, stay safe, stay smart. Gold Squadron out. Everybody waits while I find the exit button every time. Never set it up. Too busy saying the intro.
Thank you to ISO, Danko, Baffle, Trojan, Prophet, Shadow, Tycho, Spice, Raider, Lancer, Fallen, Row 6, 626, Chief, and J List, our Grand Admiral patrons. And all of our Gold Squadron patrons and community members, thank you for your support. Gold Squadron out.